birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah.
What is going on, Hive? Man, I am so happy to be back. I think the last stream was Tuesday night. Then I uploaded a video Wednesday. Was out of town for a couple days. But man, tonight's stream is going to be awesome. So I got a lot of stuff prepped. I got a lot of Hive Minds. And yeah, it's going to be great. So what is Gucci, my Louie, is exactly right, Lori. I missed you guys too, Aurora. I am happy to be back, Kim. And man, this is great. I got a couple quick announcements, but those can wait for now. I want to say what's up. I genuinely feel like I've missed my friends. Not trying to sound like a cornball. I love this chat. I love the Hive. And yeah, so I'm stoked. I'm stoked. It's Friday night. I hope everybody had a great week. Today is June 6th, 2025. We're going to be talking about the Idaho 4 case. And I have what I would deem a new theory that I'm going to be sharing with you all. I should rephrase that. It's a more structured, formalized theory that was a working theory on some of the past streams. So I am excited about that. So with that being said, I want to say what's up to everybody. I see Sharon's name, 1111, make a wish. I don't know if it's 1111 by you, but still make a wish because of your username. That's great. Phoenix is here, everybody. Phoenix is in the house. And Phoenix, the referral link is coming in the chat right now. So, all right, Sandra's here, Debbie's here, Beck is here, Kimberly, Festive 109, Divine Kate, Smixon, love that. Moto Man, Bonnie, Jojo, Christina, what's up? K-Cam says, Birdman. Yes, she is. And here is Miss Phoenix Talks. What's up, Phoenix? What's Gucci, my Louie? I got no audio for you. All right. Well, while Phoenix figures that out, it shows me, Phoenix, that you're on mute. Chantelly Lace, you were not the first username that I saw tonight. That might be the end of one of the best runs ever, because we were going on like 5 or 6 streams in a row. You were literally the first name in the chat.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Fan freaking Friday-tastic.
I'm hyped for tonight, Phoenix. I don't know if you heard the intro, but I got a new working theory for everybody that
awesome.
It explains everything. I had some time to go pretty deep on the Hive Mind finds, so I am excited for everybody to see what the chat has found. While I did miss being away, it did let me go through a lot of the emails that I got. And so pretty much what I'm trying to say is just buckle up. It's going to be a great Friday night live stream. And so, Phoenix, I hope you had a great week. I hope you're ready for a great stream, because I am very excited to hear your thoughts on what I have put together tonight.
Well, I just want to say, hey, chat. Thank you all for reaching out. You guys were so thirsty for us, and I'm so glad we're here tonight. So let's see what Birdie's got for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right, I'm going to dive into it because tonight might be a little bit longer of a stream, which is fine. It's Friday. Don't got to work tomorrow, and no bedtime tonight, right, Phoenix? So the first thing that I want to talk about is just something that I want to announce. We had a pretty good amount of people sign up for the membership for the Flight Club. I've never seen so many people reach out about paying for content or being behind a paywall. It was never the intention. If you were on the live, there was a couple people in the chat that were wanting it to have a more personable, slower moving chat during the lives. So I said, hey, I'm going to see how this goes. The response, there was people that signed up, but I chose, you know what? I'm not going to change it. Every stream's going to remain completely free. I'm just going to double down on what works well, which is I'm going to do better, even though I'm trying to manage the screen and guests and audio and sharing everything. I'm going to double down on what works. I'm going to do a better job at focusing on the chat. With StreamYard, it makes it much easier for me to pin comments up. I'm going to finish each stream with like a 10-minute overview Q&A where you guys can ask anything about it. And anybody that did sign up, I have a list, and I'm going to personally reimburse anyone who did pay. You can email me, birdiebombshell00@gmail.com, and I will pay you back directly. No questions asked. Just include your YouTube username. A screenshot will work too for proof. But as I said, every stream is going to remain completely free. I'm going to do a 10-minute Q&A at the end of every stream now. And then on Sunday nights, I think would be a really good night going into the week to maybe touch on a couple of topics from the previous week of streams. And we can dive into any of them. So Sunday night will be kind of like more interactive with the chat, questions. Maybe a really good night for the roundtable, Phoenix, is what I was thinking. Maybe Sunday nights become a Hive Mind roundtable night. I know that's something that we've been working on, but yeah, I just wanted to update you guys. Everybody who did sign up, thank you. I appreciate that. But like I said, I'm gonna pause on that for now. I will reimburse everybody personally, and make sure you email me when you see this.
That's awesome. And Sunday could be like a recap of what we went through the week, or maybe a highlight, a couple of items that we just were like baffled about during the week. I mean, I've got 3 really good questions for the chat tonight. For those that have been following this case, for those that know the family members, I've got some great questions that would probably open up to what actually happened. So I think that's really good, Birdie.
Yeah. Like I said, I wanted to see what the response was. A dedicated night, honestly, is probably one of the best things, Phoenix, that you and I could do to make sure that we're hearing the chat and hearing the Hive Mind. I know you do a great job when I'm trying to focus on what's on screen and stuff at answering. So I appreciate you continuing to do that. But I just think it's probably something that I just think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be interesting. And that's what we're all about, right? So Sunday nights will probably be slowly progressing into the Hive Mind roundtable. And how we choose or how we decide what topic or who comes up, we're just going to kind of wing it. We've been doing it thus far. We're all smart people. We like to think we are, at least. We might be tinfoil hat wearing people, but we've been proven right. And so I think if we just continue to follow what works and double down on what works, it's going to be awesome. So that is the one announcement that I have, Hive Mind. Again, when you watch this, if you did sign up, just email me and I'll get you the money back. So, all right, Phoenix, you ready? She's on mute.
No, I'm good to go. I'm just talking to myself over here. And I've got me some what do you love, those nerd gummies? I tried them. I'm in love with them.
That was your first mistake, Phoenix.
I got both kinds.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, good luck. Good luck getting off those things. I've been on them for years. That and like Dots pretzels. Don't ever even start to eat the first one, because once you eat one of them, next thing you know, the roof of your mouth is burned. No, it's Dots, D-O-T-Z.
Oh, pretzels. Okay, got it.
Yeah. It's like the roof of your mouth is going to be scarred the next day. It's like my up north guilty pleasure, sitting around a bonfire. Oh, somebody hands me a bag of Dots pretzels and I just go to town. So anyways, here is what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is
I love that.
A frat.
I love what you're going with, because it's been very apparent for a long time. And everyone says it has nothing to do with the rugs. It has nothing to do with the frats. It has nothing. It has everything to do with the money.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. My light bulb moment when I was out of town, I was talking to a couple of my coworkers, and, you know, they'd seen the stream and they were like, well, what do you got coming up? And I said, well, I'm going to like kind of formalize a theory that's just been floated out in pretty much what, Phoenix, the last 12 streams. You know what I mean? Like, the frats always come up. The rugs always come up. A cover up, LE involved, always comes up. Well, here is a theory that you guys are going to see tonight that connects the dots on all of them. And thank you, Amanda, for the super chat. That's awesome. I appreciate that. So before I dive into this, I want to go through some Hive Mind finds. Now, this first one, Phoenix, you had brought this up. Somebody emailed me right after that stream. It is the police report where somebody was like hitchhiking and laid out exactly what happened in Idaho. They clearly took this tip from the county sheriff's office serious enough. They made a report. They got their name and it was filed. Somebody sent me the screenshot of it. Now, it is redacted with names. I didn't do that. That's how the screenshot came. But I believe anytime that I've seen this, it's looked like this. Would you agree if this is ringing any bells for you, Phoenix?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was one of the key points that I thought, this is interesting.
It is interesting. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to read this. Okay. So now this is a field interview is what it's called, from the county sheriff's office. Again, it's all redacted, but this is November 22nd of 2022. So this is 8 days after the murders in Idaho. And it reads, on November 22nd, 2022 at 1:30 p.m., redacted, entered the redacted county courthouse wearing blue jeans and a gray sweatshirt, carrying a black backpack and a sleeping bag. Mr. Redacted requested to speak with a deputy to make a trip regarding a homicide. I, Deputy Redacted, advised him that he could report the tip directly to the sheriff's office by contacting Crime Stoppers or Communications. Mr. Redacted stated that he did not have a phone and was walking because he just quote unquote hitched rides down here this week from Idaho, end quote. I asked Mr. Redacted where the crime occurred, and he stated Moscow, Idaho, where all those kids were killed. I offered to call the Moscow Police Department and report the tip for him. Mr. Redacted provided me with a valid Idaho driver's license, number redacted, Mr. Redacted, provided the date of birth, September redacted, which matched the date of birth on his license. I called Redacted Communications and had them check Mr. Redacted for warrants to verify the information he had provided to me. Mr. Redacted did not have any active warrants. I asked Mr. Redacted what he believed happened. Mr. Redacted stated, I know who killed those 4 kids. They're going to try and pin it on me. I asked him to clarify if he was speaking about the Idaho State University students who were found killed on November 13th, and he replied, yep. I then asked him to name the individuals involved. Mr. Redacted reported that Kevin Redacted, Alan Redacted, and Aaron Redacted participated in the quadruple homicide, and that Kevin Redacted would have been the perpetrator, but Alan Redacted and Aaron Redacted were present or participated. Mr. Redacted also stated that Kevin drives enduro bikes and that the investigators need to look for motorcycle tracks a distance away from the crime scene because Kevin is known to have committed crimes and left his bike a ways away so he can walk to it and then get away without being recognized. I asked Mr. Redacted how he knew that these individuals were responsible for the murders, and he got defensive, stating, quote unquote, I lived in Moscow until last week. I just know they're going to try and frame me, end quote. I asked Mr. Redacted if he had direct knowledge or had witnessed the crime, and he stated again, quote, the police just need to look real close, end quote. Mr. Redacted advised me he is homeless, but will be hanging out near the library to use their computers and the area of the courthouse for the foreseeable future. Mr. Redacted was very emotionless through the duration of this conversation, only showing irritation and anger when speaking about being set up or framed for the murder. Mr. Redacted gave no reason for moving to North Carolina and no reason for leaving Idaho, except that he, quote unquote, just had to get out of there. I contacted Moscow Police Department at 1:47 p.m. and was given the number for the tip line, which is 208-883-7180, which I called at, and then it gets cut off. Phoenix, what do you think about that?
Well, it's not uncommon for people who witness a tragedy. Obviously, trauma strikes everyone different, but this probably freaked out the sheriff's department guy who took this report. But he validated many points and was probably like, wait, how did you get here? Did he know family member where he ended up? Why did he hitchhike? Was he afraid? If he just let out that these street names that I've never heard of before, was he on something? Right? You have to ask these questions. Why would he come into a police station and give all this information if it's all bogus? Right? So you have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, what did you think?
I would say this. I thought about this the same way that I think about all the 4chan and Reddit stuff that gets scrubbed. Why redact all this? Why take the report if this guy's out of his mind? Why, like, you know what I mean? Like, police, especially a sheriff, from what I've heard, both other creators say, and just like research that I've done, you can come in and you can report something, but if the officer who's taking the report doesn't feel that it's valid, this happens all the time. They don't actually take the report. So this guy clearly, whoever took this guy and interviewed him, clearly felt like there was something there.
Yeah, and he could have been hanging around a bunch of, I don't want to say, people on the rug scene. Well, we can say it here. But if he was hanging around these people in the drug scene, He may have heard or overheard who did this, and that's not a witness account. It's a third party hearsay, right?
Right.
So you have to think about these things. Now, he was just calling to give information, but as you know, you and I both know, and if he was going to the library to use a computer, there were FBI websites that you could submit tips all around. So why did he feel the need to go into the police department, announce, hey, I'm here, this is what I witnessed, and I want to give you this information? Maybe to get it off his chest, or
Well,
you
he
know,
said why. He said,
well,
I had to get out of there. They're going to frame me.
well, okay, so they found somebody else to frame, right?
Right. Well, exactly. And I just saw SJR talking about they're required by law to take the report. Well, I don't disagree that it is probably a law. It's a matter of how would anybody ever know? Because
Well,
then it
didn't
becomes a he said, she said, you said this, I said that. As far as like, well, did you say you wanted to file a formal report? Did you really like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like there's laws for a lot of stuff clearly that
well,
don't matter.
there clearly are also some things they have to do too. But wasn't it Kopaka that was said to have said they're going to frame me for those girls?
Allegedly, that is what he said out his window, right? He yelled it.
Yeah, allegedly someone heard him say the same thing. So, this whole case is just so baffling. So were they just looking for someone to frame? Because I will tell you this, what I found today in the Idaho court records. Did you know that William Thompson, Latah County prosecutor, there was a citation given to Brian Kohberger in early 2022. I want to say August. Let me look at my, hold on a minute. Let me look at my screenshots one quick second. I don't want to give any bad info. But there was a traffic violation for Mr. Kohberger, and William.
Les says August, no seatbelt.
Okay. So he actually got a ticket. He did not show up to court. So I wonder who wrote him the ticket. He was on the radar in Idaho under someone. So were they just looking for someone to frame? Because that was an interesting thing that I thought this afternoon when I saw that. I was like, wow, he got a ticket and he didn't show up for court. It automatically defaulted to the judgment and he paid the fine. So it was no big deal, right?
Yeah. And I just got to say to everybody that's donating, just unbelievably grateful and thank you for that. And you guys are awesome. And like Phoenix and I have said many times, we're not ever going to ask for any kind of monetary donation. If you get a profile with us, I have one profile. It's Birdie Bombshell. From what I believe, Phoenix, you only have one on both
I only
YouTube
have
and
one.
TikTok. Yep. So, and you're not going to ask for money. So thank you to everybody who.
Nope. But speaking of money, so I thought that was interesting that I found that from Idaho on Brian, but I'm sure everybody else has probably already seen it or talked about it before. But we sure do appreciate the chat, Birdie. I know your ADHD gets the best of you, and I got a little tiny bit of it. But that find was interesting because whoever gave him the ticket may have had some connection and put him on the map. Now, I can ask to see who gave them the ticket, to see whose name is on there, and see if there's any connection. Because when I saw that, I was like, that put him on the map somewhere. Someone knew his name. And, when you talk about, he paid the fine. Okay, money. I have seen some crazy stuff go on in this case, especially the GoFundMes. And I know you wanted to go ahead and do the Hive Mind fines. So remind me to talk about that.
Okay, I will. And I was just going to say that how you were asking, like, oh, they look for somebody else to be framed. I think that the theory, which again, it's just a theory, might explain. So moving on, here is the next Hive Mind find. This is another interesting. Oops. Yep. Okay. So here we go. All right. Moscow, City of Moscow Police Department. I don't have the exact date, but I believe it was they might actually say it was in 2024. So this afternoon we had, go ahead.
Oh God, Bertie, go back one real quick.
Yep.
What was the names in there?
It's all redacted. Well, the names as far as like
Kevin, Alan.
Yeah, you got
Kevin, Alan, and Aaron.
Yep. I actually screenshotted that because I wanted to put it into ChatGPT and just
Kevin,
say,
Alan,
hey,
and Aaron.
show me the names behind the
Could
redacted squares.
Alan possibly be Allison Couch's brother? His middle name is Alan.
Maybe. Could be. I don't know. I mean, that's one of those things where, you know, whenever I put the Hive Mind finds up, this is actually coming up here in 2 slides. I had one that I couldn't stop digging into, and I actually built a theory off of it, and it's with court documents. I don't know. Okay. So here, this is not the one right here, but this is from 2024. City of Moscow Police Department. This afternoon, we had the great honor of recognizing our 2 forensic detectives, Detective Lawrence Mowry and Detective Andrew Fox, for their invaluable work in digital forensics. Network intrusion forensic analyst Neil Ehrig presented Detective Mowry and Detective Fox each with quote unquote certificates of excellence from the U.S. Secret Service Spokane resident office. In 2024, Detective Fox performed the highest volume of data analysis among all the National Computer Forensics Institute graduates in Northern Idaho, Eastern Washington, and Western Montana. He examined 58.96 terabytes of data. Detective Mowry followed up with the second most amount of data and analyzed at 31.95 terabytes. Both have established themselves as experts in all things cyber related for our region. Often, our detectives are called upon by outside agencies for their expertise. We are proud to have detectives who perform at such a high level and remain consistent in their dedication to solving cyber crimes. Congratulations, Detective Fox and Detective Mowry. These awards are well deserved. Now, the things that stuck out to me, U.S. Secret Service and the amount of data that these two are doing. Terabytes is 1 terabyte is a crap ton. It's a ton. To do 58 and then 31, both from the City of Moscow Police Department. Chat. Come on. What does that say? That means that in last year in 2023, when the murders happened at the end of 2022, you can't get through 58.9 terabytes of data and almost 32 terabytes of data quickly. I can promise you that.
Yeah, and then the prosecution is handed over, what, 58, 68, something like that?
Yep. So
and remember, a video file is pretty big, and depending on how many video files they handed over would take a lot of data. But when you're looking at this and you're thinking, okay, why are they doing network intrusion forensic analysis there? And the second question I have is, they're working with other agencies. Why?
Exactly. And you want to know what I thought of when I read this, Phoenix? Is
crypto.
Well, actually, no. Actually, no. I didn't think of crypto, but that would fit. That would fit. I thought of the interview with Steve G and Christy when they said Kaylee's laptop's missing.
Digital footprint. And she allegedly had something like 87 accounts.
Yeah, she apparently had a lot of IDs, more than they expected her to have. Weird comment again. I feel like I don't want to I digress. Let me get through these because this is another good one too. So here's another Hive Mind find. This is on the Justice for Brian Koberger. It was posted anonymously, and it gives a timeline that, I mean, we've said it, but when you actually read it without kind of bouncing all over the place in between, it makes a lot of sense. So let me read this to you all. So it says, in a nutshell, the time frame for murder, and it says murder 1 at 2 a.m. rideshare. Eric Gower drops off Kaylee and Maddie at the King Road house. At 2:10, Dylan calls Gower from an unknown location to confirm Kaylee and Madison are inside the house. Dylan then relays this information to a group of people, and the response is immediate. The couple is killed between 2:10 and 2:26. At 2:26 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie are aware of the mayhem. That's when they begin their 10 unanswered calls to Jack D, and it lists the sequence of the calls, ending at 2:52. Maddie makes last call to Bethany at 2:53. The girls upstairs are killed between 2:53 and 3:01, coinciding with the Banfield diversion logged in at 3:01, the exact moment a group of people seen running away from King Road property. It says epilogue. 2 important clues: blood-stained handrail on second floor and unknown male DNA etched in Madison's fingernails. A DNA match would nail the killers. Gist of audio conversation / text messages between Maddie and Bethany at 2:53 a.m. are of the utmost importance. Bethany's location is unknown as well. Motivation, drugs, and vengeance, hence the bait put out by Dylan for the sorority invite to lure Kaylee back to Moscow. 911 call was delayed to allow removal of drug stash and homicide evidence. Now,
Wow.
that is pretty well said and written. It's hard with how much is going on in this case to really kind of narrow in, like whoever wrote this did. But
Right.
the ending, Phoenix. What do you always say that it's like Occam's razor, right? Occam's razor, whatever it is.
Occam, OCCUM. Occam's razor is the answer, is the most simplest explanation. So, like I've always said with the timeline, that fits the timeline, except for, allegedly Dylan and Bethany left to go get something to eat and was gone. And then they went somewhere else after. So, I mean, I don't even know if they were really there and witnessed everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the most simplest answer fits that, yes, this had something to do with rugs. Now, if allegedly Kaylee had an OnlyFans or was doing
I'm going to get
something,
into that.
that's not illegal, guys. It's not technically illegal. You can have an OnlyFans, you can have money. That's just capitalism right there. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Well, I will say this. I'm going to get into that. And
Okay.
to your point, it's not illegal. And you're right. You call it capitalism. It's like, get your money, sis, right? Like that's what everybody says. But how could that be nefariously used against her? That was a rhetorical question.
Well, because I mean, if you think about it, you can invite some really dangerous people into your life that way.
Blackmail.
And exactly, that is the number one that comes across my mind, other than serious danger or running around with the wrong crowd. But if she's got to get her bag and get her car and get the job and get out of town, why did she even come back? If she knew, like I said, there was an incident in October, was it only a skinned dog left at that residence, but there was some other animal. There was more than one. I don't know if it was a rabbit or something else. So she wasn't feeling safe, allegedly, per that report. So she went to move home. So why would she even come back?
Dylan invited her, but
yeah, here's my one lingering question I got to throw out there with this timeline.
Yep.
Steve G interviewed and said that she had dated someone shortly, and this person, basically
called her,
treated her horrible.
"Bitch, make me a quesadilla" was the quote.
Oh yeah,
right.
This person treated her horrible, and that she said, Steve G did say allegedly that Kaylee said that she would never find someone who treated her well as Jack did. And when that one quote stuck in my mind, I want to know who she dated for that short amount of time.
It is weird they don't say that. It is very weird. And you know what? I think here's where I'm going to cap this conversation at, because again, we're going to talk about it after I get through the Hive Mind finds. But
okay.
I think OnlyFans has become a generalized name. It's been an umbrella thing, right? OnlyFans is what would be the word that I'm looking for? Like it's formalized. It's a platform. Okay. I think that we've used that term as an umbrella term, and it encompassed a version of maybe some of that same potential stuff, just not as formalized, way more sketchy. I
Yeah,
think it's potentially where the snuff film rumors came from. And I have a deep dive kind of on that at the end here.
it could or it couldn't be, but it's more like self-exploitation, right?
Yeah.
Exploitation. So when you hear Only's fan, it's like in the old days when you heard Madison Reed, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same context that you're thinking, oh my God, were they sugar babies? Did they have sugar daddies? What kind of people were they attracting into their circles? So Les has the tea. We're not avoiding the chat. I'm watching the chat as we go through here, and you all are bringing up some amazing,
Look at the
awesome
comment on
points.
screen.
Yeah, amazing, awesome points. And this is kind of like one of those things where, you know, we're looking into it, we're digging into the files, we're looking at court documents, we're getting these tidbits of information from sources, but we're not like, I'm not, and I can't speak for Bertie, I'm not trying to solve this mystery. We're just trying to understand this mystery.
Correct. Yep. I agree. Going back to real quick, just to the Oxum's razor point. I can never say that word, but let's break down the simplest aspect of this entire Hive Mind find. And it's the last sentence. 911 call delayed to allow removal of drug stash and homicide evidence. Right? Why do you delay calling 911 on a quadruple homicide where your roommates are killed? Your PCA is all over the place, or you weren't even there. Well, the simplest answer is one of two things. You had no idea, which then why lie? Why is your timeline sketchy as hell? Or two, it's exactly what this says. You delayed the call to remove some sort of drug stash, money, homicide evidence. One of those two. Like, I don't see what else it could possibly be. At this point,
Yeah.
I really don't.
And did you know I found an article that was written in February of 2023? It clearly, you're going to laugh. Unknown best friend called 911 after finding Idaho student Ethan Chapin murdered, not roommate Dylan Mortensen. So
Say
that
again?
911, did you hear that?
Well, yes, but say that again.
Unknown best friend called 911 after finding Idaho student Ethan Chapin murdered, not roommate Dylan Mortensen. So the 911 call that we hear can be potentially fake.
Yeah, I agree. Now, this next Hive Mind find is a video. This is from the creator Open Mind Perspectives. We talked about the 911. This is a crazy segue, Phoenix, that you just said maybe the 911 call is fake. I want you guys to look at this video. Again, this is from Open Mind Perspectives. I'm going to open this and you can watch it. Here's the channel.
Now, is this on Hannah McClure?
Well, yes, but I want to show it's 35 seconds. It's just interesting. It's very interesting.
Here I'm going to prove that the Grubhub video is not the actual night of the incident. This is the night where Hannah was still alive. Every single thing that we've been watching, guys, is not that night. This one is that same lady who was at Hannah's funeral. This guy cannot be at two places at once. Look.
So that was posted 2 days ago. I mean, I'm going to play that again.
Here I'm going to prove that the Grubhub video is not the actual night of the incident. This is the night where Hannah was still alive. Every single thing that we've been watching, guys, is not that night. This one is that same lady who was at Hannah's funeral. This guy cannot be at two places at once. Look.
So again, the point of me sharing that is just people have speculated on the fact that they are curious if either the 911 call is fake, if the Grub Truck Twitch stream is a replay and the girls were out and that was them a completely different night. hence maybe why Joe has to go and cover it. Maybe he's in on it for the sketchy behavior. He's really innocent, and he's trying to come up with, hey, I know that this is not from that same night. Now, who knows? Who knows? It's not meant to spread misinformation, but nobody knows. And if you don't think that somebody could redate a Twitch stream or say at least it's a different date or overlay 911 audio calls, if you can't wrap your head around that technology existing, I don't know how to, I guess, explain it any differently other than it's very possible. It's been very possible. You can see all the AI fake voices for famous people that are on record, on air, talking. AI will mimic their voice for everything from ads to comedy to whatever. I don't think that editing a Twitch stream or a 911 call, which, by the way, Mama Tata put out when she was on my live on TikTok a couple weeks ago, saying that 911 operator is the most monotoned AI sounding voice ever. And as soon as she said that, it clicked for me. That is a real possibility. So,
yeah, I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow because, you know, I went and looked at the Grub Truck stats. I went and looked at the Twitch stream on the night that it streamed, how many users logged in. And it seemed like the uptick at 3 a.m. was like over 370 something people watching at that time on that weekend. So I kind of question this one. I'm going to have to put it on the table and look again. But the video that I did on let's just take a look and see what Twitch was streaming that night is very interesting.
yes. Now, Phoenix, what I'm about to show you next, these next two Hive Mind finds are like a Hive Mind find hybrid. Say that 3 times fast. Hive Mind find hybrid. Actually, it's not that hard. But have you seen this yet, Phoenix?
I'm the one that found it last night.
Were you the one that sent me this?
No, I didn't send it to you, but I did make a video last night. It was about 10:30 my time when I just
maybe
happened
somebody
to
saw
look.
yours and they sent me it then.
I happened to look at the Washington courts because last week after hearing, I thought, what if Brian begins to start suing people that have defamed him or slandered him or put a lawsuit against the college or the police department? So I've been watching, you know, Washington. I've been watching Idaho. I have been, because they're charging him in Idaho because the crime happened in Idaho. However, he was living in Pullman, which is Whitman County. And I've been watching lawsuits being filed and looking at blotters all over, especially with the police that were attached to this in Washington. So I found this and I thought, this is suspicious because I put out a video. Are they lawsuits or are they summons? And usually a summons will go out for you to appear in court. It becomes an order of law. And if you do not appear in court because you are being subpoenaed to come to court, a summons, then if you don't show up and you have pertinent information, or you don't have a good reason why you didn't attend trial, then it could potentially lead to a lawsuit because you weren't at a specific place and time. So that's a civil right everyone has, especially if people are reluctant to come to court, because typically an attorney will call you, you'll give your background, they'll ask a few questions, and then they'll ask you, will you be a witness in court? And those who cooperate say, yeah, I don't have a problem. But sometimes it leads into a summons like these. Sorry, I got hiccups. And it leads into a summons or a subpoena-like document, which is a legal document. So, but the one that I found very interesting was filed on May 28th. And that looks like a real lawsuit, but it doesn't give me any details. So typically when you see this, you have to contact the court, pay $1 or $2 to find out what the document is. But I don't know if they're going to give these documents out just yet. But each and every individual document, if you reference those in the Odyssey files, it shows the initials of those who were subpoenaed or summoned to come to court. Some of those are the DoorDash driver with the initials of MM. Some are saying it's allegedly Matthew Moyer, who lived around the corner from the house. Some of Brian Koberger's WSU contacts, in a couple of handful of other people. But this is pretty interesting, which makes me think two things are happening at the same time right now. And that is, one, the hearing on the 18th is about a delay in trial. So this may be a sign of the future that if they're on track to go to trial, they are putting out these subpoenas ahead of time so people know where they need to be in August. And it gives them plenty of time. But if it's delayed, this is on the court record that they have tried to reach these people and that it gives them more time. So we'll find out on the 18th if this is going to go on as planned.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I gave 3 possibilities here of what I think it could be after doing some research. So this was kind of what I was super excited to talk about here as far as for the Hive Mind finds. So I think possibility A is that Koberger's trying to subpoena a witness, records, or third parties from Washington for use in his Idaho trial. The motion to quote unquote direct attendance in an Idaho district court strongly suggests he is attempting to compel someone from Washington to appear or produce evidence.
Correct.
The second possibility is that Koberger is contesting evidence collection that occurred in Washington, possibly targeting how data was obtained from his apartment, his devices, his car, school accounts, any internet providers like the WSU. It says dorm Wi-Fi. I should have said like apartment Wi-Fi. If it's like one of those ones when you move in, you have to use that provider, and technically the feds would go to the landlord instead of the actual tenant in that certain unit. I said it may be a preemptive strike against illegal search and seizure arguments tied to his digital footprint, possibly challenging how investigators got click history or if they altered any digital records. And then the last possibility that I said is Koberger or his legal team is trying to expose or flip someone, which I think kind of lines up with what you said and what a lot of the Hive Mind said with they're summoning somebody, meaning that a witness or an associate who was in Washington but connected to the Idaho case. This could include someone who planted evidence, which would be nuts, someone who knows who really owned the K-bar, or someone in LE or WSU involved in improper collaboration. And I continue on to this next slide with this, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is crazy. May 1st, it's another filed case. Whoops. It lists out Bethany Grace Funk, everybody.
Yes. And Scott Friedman.
And Scott Friedman, yeah.
Uh-huh. So here's the interesting thing. I've always said the only one that I looked at seriously from the remaining roommates, surviving roommates, victims, was Bethany, because of the federal connections, because of who her alleged uncles are, and what possible motive did they have to, have this happen. So when you look at all these things and you're confused about why is she being called, because she's not just a survivor. She may be a witness, because didn't I say weeks ago from the text that they released, she initiated, Madison Mogen tried to call her. She initiated this with Dylan. So either she has some serious information or they are trying to compel her to come to court, because remember, they already had the subpoena quashed for her to come from Nevada.
Right. Well, that's what I talk about. So that's another good segue. I said the bottom line is that Bethany Funk is not just a survivor. She's contested legally. She's a relevant witness. And this civil action shows the legal system is still wrestling over what she knows, what she saw, and whether she can be forced to speak. And I list out 3 bullet points on why this matters.
I think Bethany's story and Dylan's story doesn't line up, and Bethany is more credible. That's just what I think.
Well, okay. Listen here. I'm curious to hear what you think about this.
Sure.
So I said why this matters, and I listed out 3 reasons. One of them is that, first of all, BF, she is not just a bystander; she's an interested party, as far as like in civil action lawsuit language, right? Between Idaho, the state of Idaho, and Koberger. This is very rare, and it implies she may have knowledge or evidence not yet disclosed, which is what you kind of just said, Phoenix. She may have contradicted public statements, and she may possess physical or digital evidence Koberger's team wants suppressed or Idaho wants reinforced. I truly think that this last one is the most likely. Because what was Brian's statement, Phoenix? Who's going to exonerate him?
Through his attorney said that Brian Koberger could not wait to be exonerated.
Because who could clear his name?
Well, I never heard her name associated with his. All I heard is that the attorney gave the statement that Brian cannot wait to be exonerated. And the only person who can exonerate him, in my humble opinion, would be the Asian girl, possibly, because there was some implication or implied dating history. And allegedly they were seen inside Walmart that Sunday morning, the next morning. And they spent about an hour inside Walmart. So that was alleged.
Via Dateline, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you want to know what the second thing is that I said, though, Phoenix? Which is probably just, if this is not the most obvious clue that the roommate narrative is breaking down. I mean, that's what I want to, I guess, get across. Why I dove into this find so deeply is this point right here.
So here's the paradox here. If Bethany was given immunity, just like Dylan was given immunity, no prosecution, then why would they? I mean, let's ask the chat. Chat, what would you do if you were in Bethany's situation and you were being forced and ordered to be at a certain place and time to give testimony on the stand? What would be your biggest fear? And I think we just saw it this week if you've been watching the Karen Reed trial. What would be your biggest fear?
Well, tell people about that so that they can maybe relate. I mean, and I'm going to go while you do real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, there was an officer on the stand that would implicate 2 other officers. If she told the truth on the stand, she would lose her job, lose her credibility. And she didn't want to lose her job. So she kind of skated around the idea that if she told the truth, then these 2 other officers would be implicated. So under perjury, I mean, penalty of perjury. And if they're telling her, oh, no, you have immunity, then it's not like, okay, I'm going to go up there and lie on the stand. That's like a conscience thing, not only against the law, but it's like you're going to put an innocent man at risk of the DP. I mean, think about it. I don't know if she had a relationship or any type of relationship. Remember, there has been no said connection with any of the people that lived in the house with BK. None whatsoever. So how in the world can they force someone, if she already got out of one subpoena, to come and testify if they've already testified for the grand jury? And then they both lawyered up and skipped town. So, I mean, I'm sure. And they've already told him, well, hey, you have to testify, but we're not going to put your face on the screen and you're not going to be filmed. And we're doing all we can to support the witnesses because this case that the prosecution has brought forward is on the map. They cannot lose this case. Can you imagine how much face they would lose in the state of Idaho? Not only that, but in all these other 50 states that it's become a national headline. What about, I mean, outside of the country, we have plenty of people watching us from all over the world, and they're thinking, man, those Americans are screwed, right? Because of our justice system. Look at their justice system is as worse as ours, but they cannot lose this case because look at all the time they've spent trying this case. And the prosecution has not done much to try their case when it's by fact law that they must prosecute this case. That means they must file certain things. And I looked at the docket again today, and all you see is everything from the defense, the defense, the defense, the defense. I've not seen much, except for today. There was an there was a motion of objection to delaying this trial again from the state. So you don't see much coming from the state. It's all the defense.
So I obviously just missed a lot of that. Did you read this second part?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So to just kind of double down on what we've been saying, this solidifies it. This was, as a reminder, this was filed on May 1st. And thank you to whoever sent this to us. It is a huge clue. Oops. It's a direct clue that the roommate narrative is breaking down. If Idaho's own court system is filing motions across state lines to secure a witness, it suggests they don't trust voluntary compliance. I love the word voluntary in this situation, Phoenix, because it's also going to suggest that her testimony contradicts other survivors, which is exactly what you said, or even conflicts with elements of the prosecution narrative. What other motivation would there be for this? It has to be that. It doesn't make any sense at this point, I believe, in a pretrial or going into a trial, unless it's exactly what this bullet point says.
Right. And also, like I said, she's going to be forced into this, but the scariest part is when you get to court and you're ordered to go to court and you don't go to court, you could face issues, obviously legal issues, especially if you have evidence or knowledge, firsthand knowledge that could change the outcome of somebody being charged with the death penalty.
Yep.
And if you get on the stand and you commit, like I've already said, I explained to the chat that, when you get to court, you don't have the opportunity to plead the fifth. You are coming as a witness. You are subpoenaed. You were ordered to bring your knowledge, bring, evidence, or bring your brain knowledge, whatever you witnessed. And if you get up there on the stand and you've already been given immunity, the state wants to prosecute this
Right.
case.
Right.
They want that information you have. But then it's a struggle between conscience. Am I going to tell the truth? Will I be looked at, or if my statement looks much different than Dylan's? And this is where it gets me that the judge ruled that all the witnesses can stay inside the courtroom. They have access to watch other people's testimony, which gives you the ability to change your testimony, which I think is totally wrong. Usually they clear out the whole courtroom if you are going to be a witness, and you sit outside the courtroom and you wait your turn, and they call in witnesses one by one, so you cannot corroborate your testimony, so that the jury can see, oh, well, somebody's not telling the truth here. Which one has more integrity? Which one is telling the most truth? Because once you get up on stand, you are under penalty of perjury.
Well, exactly. And look at what a lot of people in the chat are talking about immunity. The Nevada address, it gives her like legal distance, is I guess the only way that I would know how to say it, right?
Right, it is. The
Yeah.
jurisdiction, yeah.
Right. So this is why in Washoe, however you want to say it, and not Idaho, her legal team may still fight this. But the fact that Idaho is pressing this issue in 2025, it tells us all of these bullet points. It's not settled. Her involvement matters. And there may be holes in what she told police versus what she knows. I can't think of any other reason. Can you?
No, I think she has information that's being withheld.
Yes.
And by her, lawyering up and moving out of state, if she has something to hide, that was a smart move. But, eventually she's going to have to come and testify by law. And this is just a courtesy to say, hey, we're going to subpoena you. You need to come. Or, maybe there will be a possible civil lawsuit.
So, and I just want to say too, Jason says that we are focused on clearing Brian and that we have tunnel vision. I would be curious, Jason, if you've ever tuned into the Hive Mind, you would know that this is the least tunnel visioned chat ever. I'm not sure if what the context, I guess, is that if you were replying to somebody. We've gone through every and any angle and lens. We've even gone through angles that Brian is involved. So I don't mean to call anybody out or try to like make them feel stupid. I want to make sure that that is known, that tonight's stream is looking into this, right? Phoenix, like last week's stream, next week's stream, we could be like, how is Koberger involved?
Connected.
Yeah, exactly. We've done that. So,
and that's a great point, Bertie. How is he connected if he knew
and
none
he
of
was
these
replying
people?
to somebody. That's why I said I didn't want to call him out without the context. But I just, either way, Jason, and thank you for tuning in. I was curious because whether or not that wasn't the context, that is something that gets said to us a lot. So, but it's true, right? Like, it is true. We've looked through every lens possible. So, and thank you for clarifying. I go back to these 3 bullet points. They're all very telling. Dylan and Bethany could end this nonsense tonight. They could. They really could.
Yeah, I believe 1 or 2 of them hold the information needed to either clear Brian or clearly say he's guilty.
Yeah. So, all right, Phoenix, that was the Hive Mind finds. Okay. Those were great. Those were really great. I want to talk about kind of what Phoenix and I have been leaning into a little bit, is this informant, that we believe there was somebody who was an informant.
Somebody? There were many people.
Well, and so I believe that what set this domino effect into motion was somebody in a frat that got hazed and ended up dying.
It was what, Rush Week, correct?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was like, well, it was what do they call that?
Initiation.
Yeah, yep. So I wasn't in Greek life. You guys can probably tell. But obviously I've learned enough about it. So knowing it like the back of my hand as if I did it, I don't know it like that. But from, kind of what we've researched and stuff, yes, it sounds like it was like initiation, hence the formals, the dances, the Brotherhood night, things like that. So,
and even if not, there was a lot of tension in the fraternity.
Yes, there was. And so I think that so here's what we're going to dive into tonight. Was this death of Hudson that was an alleged hazing death by people in a fraternity at the University of Idaho, the domino that tipped and set this entire thing in motion? Because if that happened, as a lot of 4chan and Reddit posts that have been scrubbed happened, and I think, full transparency, Phoenix, I think we all can agree the frat, the sorority, the Greek life, whatever you want to call it, has been at the forefront of rumors this entire time since day one.
Yes, they have. And by rightly so, because of 7 or 8 unalivings prior to these 4.
Yes. And so here is how, in my theory that I'm going to talk about tonight, and what I want the Hive and what I want you, Phoenix, let's kind of think through this, is, let's say that happens. Both Washington and Idaho have minimal reported incidents with Greek life, right? We've dug into that. We've dug into it from like, well, in the nation, though, we've talked about underreporting. You get what I mean, right?
Oh, absolutely. But in 2019, with the SAMS Act, there was a guy named Sam that was in the frat that was unalived. Now, these colleges have to share the incidents on their websites. So now you can go to the college websites and look at all the incidents. So they have to be transparent, and this is by law.
Right. So, but let's say that let's get into the mindset of the 4chan leak about Hudson, the young man that was killed.
Linlo.
Yep. By being suspectedly waterboarded and then dumped in Paradise Creek by Jack S. knew. It was like Adam L. Jack D. I'm going to go through it. Sorry. So I'm getting ahead of myself. But let's just say that happened. The incident is covered up due to fear of legal repercussions, not just by the students involved for the fear of obviously killing somebody and manslaughter, but it's covered up by the university and it's covered up by the local cops.
Correct.
Okay. Do you guys understand? That might be the simplest yet most reasonable explanation for everything going on. Because what if that happening got the feds' attention? What if a part of the parallel federal investigations that were going on, Phoenix, stemmed from a rumored hazing accident? And what if when those feds got involved to look at the hazing accident, there was already an ongoing drug investigation into the pipeline and that trafficking highway that goes right up through there? So
absolutely. And we've established that through many connections inside the house.
Yes. So, and then you think about the last bullet point here, and that's that one of the roommates, I should have said one of the roommates or roommate's family members is a CI with ties to law enforcement.
Correct.
Because think about, if you were to think about, like, you have two parallel investigations going on. Both the university has to be aware of, and both, if they were public, the university would hurt. They'd have no money. The tuition and enrollment rates would go down. That's probably the most explainable motive by who's powerful enough, who's connected to all of the accidents, and who could frame a narrative. Well, it's the university and the local law enforcement.
Right. But what if the local law enforcement officers were in on this?
Well, so this is kind of like this little, chart, whatever, right? So you got the frat hazing death cover-up. The police investigated it, right? So that's what started it. Now, the frats know about it. The university knows about it. You have also confidential informants maybe in that fraternity that are a part of an ongoing federal investigation. So they don't want to report it. Maybe even the feds go, we can't have a spotlight on this fraternity because we are in the middle of running an operation with low-level flipped confidential informants for the cartel or the Aryan Brotherhood selling drugs on our campus. I mean, that would make sense. Why would they blow the lid on that? People's lives are at risk.
Because they wanted to take down the middle guy.
Yes.
They had to take down the middle guy, JBJ, Jesse James Bailey. And they did take him down, obviously, with all the news reporting that had gone on there and the federal backing. And then they took down the main guy with the cartel that had some connections in this town.
Phoenix, look at the comment on screen. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but I was questioning who did she date? Who was she dating?
Dude? Is that the dude?
That's
Leanne.
the guy that's the guy who was unalived.
Right, but is that allegedly, the guy that had said that to her, that Steve G said, you're never going to find another Jack? Because that's the dude that she just was like, I'm done. I'm never going to.
Maybe. It could be. But, I mean, it was also alleged that she was dating a cop. So, I don't know. But I do know that when you look at this big picture, obviously there was a parallel investigation. Obviously, there was some involvement with the police or the university police. And it looks like that indeed that the connections were very clear. And if you don't know the connections, I mean, we've gone over this before. There were people in the house that were related to some confidential informants. There's a lot of good channels that go really deep into this. There was some federal investigation going on at the same time, and there had been connections with some of the other, roommates, from attorneys all the way to the feds. So, I mean, it's a huge. What did I always say in the beginning of this? This was like a perfect storm.
Yep.
And if they all knew about it and they were going to go do something about it, obviously someone wanted to suppress that information.
Yep. I agree. And what I have written at the bottom here, the chat kind of cuts it off on the screen over here. But it says, if there's a leak, it blows the confidential informants cover. It would blow the hazing incident wide open. It's going to blow the frat involvement, both on the incident and if the CI, I'm not just talking for the King Roadhouse. I'm talking if there's a low-level CI in a frat. I hope everybody can wrap their heads around that would be probably relatively easy to do. And then, but what does that ultimately do? And I believe that this last part that you guys can't see, it says blow LE's complicity, however you say it. Which, by the way, whenever I stutter like that, I do have a lisp thing. Like I went to speech all through middle school, so don't make fun of me.
What do you do? I had no idea. I would have never known.
Yeah. So, well, whatever. I used to. It doesn't matter. So, long story short,
I just have gummy clusters in my mouth. So.
Oh, you're good. You're good, Phoenix. You're good. I was gonna say this last part of if LE was involved to cover up this frat. Like, I want to know, would LE in Moscow be entitled to know that a federal investigation was going on to a fraternal Greek life hazing death that the feds thought was maybe not investigated correctly? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if the feds became aware of Hudson's death? They're like, this is a little bit weird. The university's not either reporting it, they're not investigating it. Local LE is not doing much with it. We're going to get involved. Would the feds ever not tell Moscow PD that they're there? I don't know.
I mean, legally, they don't have to. They don't have to disclose that to them. And that's probably where a lot of this got hazy.
That's ultimately what I think really is the confusion of why it took the police chief 4 effing days to have a conference. They're trying to sort out. Hang on. So you're telling me the FBI has been surveilling people? What if they were building a case against the frat already just for the hazing incident? Hence the surveillance that Steve G talks about.
What if they were building
laptops taken?
What if they were building a case against the police department with the involvement with the rugs?
Well, you want to know what that seems to tap into every time, Phoenix, that we were so curious about what Ann Taylor meant, or I'm sorry, not necessarily Ann Taylor, what the court docs meant with national security?
Absolutely.
If you're
going to pipeline.
Well, the pipeline and just corruption. You can't let that out.
Well,
you couldn't. Yeah. It would ruin the case, right?
No, but you also have to look at the hand in hand, the parallel between the F that was put out on the street that was deadly, that could kill a small community or the whole Seattle area. So, I mean, their priority was to get these rugs off the street. And if you look at all the ODs in that area, that kind of tells you something was not right.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe they had an urgency to take that off the street.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is that if there's a hazing death, a rumored hazing death in Greek life, I would say every single time that happens and it's reported or it leaks, it's national news, right? It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
What if that investigation began in the middle of the Fed's investigation into the fentanyl that's coming
Oh,
into that
absolutely.
area? But here's what I don't understand about the Feds. How what's the word that they use? Like decentralized, decompartmentalized? How like where you only know what you have to know are the Feds.
And remember, they were working an investigation. I think it was a couple of days ago that we were talking about the investigation where Moscow's main priority was to remove the drugs off the street, right? So when you start looking at that, maybe they were aware of the federal investigation on the drugs, but then it was all this stuff going on at the university they didn't want them to look into. And it just so happens that this investigation is ongoing. Well, this university thing happens. And you were talking about how they infiltrated Greek life.
So let's do this exercise. And Hive, you guys in the comments, if you're caught up to the live, just maybe type out like 1 or 2 words as far as anything that I'm missing when I talk through this. So can we all agree? Actually, you know what we'll do? We'll do the old 1 in the chat. Okay. So type a 1. I'm going to go through a couple things that I can think of. If I'm missing anything, Phoenix, you chime in, or Hive, you guys chime in. Would this explain motive? Type a 1, yes. Type a 2, no. Phoenix, what do you think? I think yes.
I think the motive for all this clearly is money. And whoever was going to interrupt the money side of this and tell if they found something out was going to bring down everything. And the way that some of these families have been so vocal make me think that they were behind some of this. That's just my intuitive nature, my investigation nature.
I agree. Don't get me wrong. I agree. I'm trying to do this on like a simple level of thinking, which is probably hard.
But it's not simple. That's the problem. There is like I said before, there are so many dynamics in a house full of 6 people.
Of course. I completely agree. I'm trying to think though, what's the motive right now? What's the narrative of the motive right now?
Money. The college.
No. For Brian.
Oh. Got it.
What is it? What would you say it is?
I think someone was going to snitch and tell, and they had to get rid of the snitch.
I'm trying. I guess let me re-ask that. Maybe. What is Brian Kohberger's motive if he did this?
I don't even see him having a motive.
That's what honestly. I'm trying to get at. So, like on the simplest level, if Brian Kohberger, the motive is that he killed them because they're beautiful, according to Dateline, or if he killed them because it's fantasizing, or if he killed them because he's lonely or he's jealous, okay, well then let's apply that same simplicity of a motive to the Greek life that's been rumored to be involved in these killings since day 1, accidentally killed a pledge by waterboarding him and then dumped him in Paradise Creek. Would we all agree that that's at least on the simplicity level of a motive of Brian Kohberger being the lonely incel criminology student that apparently has the smarts to pull this off, yet makes every stupid crime mistake possible because he wanted to kill them because they're beautiful? Can we agree with that?
Yeah, that's just wild.
It's crazy. That's kind of the point I was trying to get at, is like on the simplest level, it's better than the motive the news and the world news or everybody's saying.
Yeah. Oh, you know what gets me is that these people that go and compare him to Bundy. Okay, this is like really gets me. And when I see a video of someone who says, oh, he's so like Bundy and this and that, he wanted to impress his previous professor and all this crap. And I think to myself, They don't know nothing hardly about Bundy. I guess they didn't study him very well, because they would know that he was in that sorority longer than they said he was in there. And all these other details where they still can't find a motive for Brian Koberger. There is still no known motive.
There's
Don't you
no
find that?
actual motive.
Yeah, don't you find that odd that he had no? I was just out stargazing and decided that I would just go, like, maybe unalive 4 people out of the blue.
There's no known motive. There's no murder weapon. There's no known connection. There's no known
We've never
entry.
seen any
It's
video of him
there's
there.
nothing. There's nothing. And here's what, sorry for yelling. I know somebody in the chat said, why are we yelling? Sorry. I get so fired up. You look at Karen Reed on social media, like as far as the people that are defending her for being framed. What is the difference in this case? And I'll answer it for you. It's the news narrative, everybody. There's probably less evidence against Brian Koberger committing this crime than Karen Reed. Maybe people agree with that. Maybe people disagree with that. But you can't say on the most basic level, those cases are not very similar, with law enforcement tampering of a narrative, of pointing a finger, of motive, and of, I would say that Karen Reed screaming at her boyfriend, calling him a pervert and all this stuff, and admitting she drove off and flew away, is more sus than Brian Koberger transferring and being a loner. I'm not saying that I disagree that Karen Reed is innocent. I'm not saying that. I'm trying to make a point about, it's all about how the news presents it to the masses.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
And you do know also, speaking of the university, they have lost out on the ability of the University of Phoenix buying them. They were in negotiations to buy them.
Yep.
And this hit at the wrong time, because now they have broken contracts, not negotiating anything. And the University of Idaho may owe them some big money. So, I mean, this whole thing that happened to them is like, so, I mean, just wild. If there was a parallel investigation, it blew up right there in Moscow.
So I agree. I think there's so much stuff outside the scene. Phoenix, I'm trying to, for this kind of the sake of tonight's stream, or at least not the stream, with this part of the stream, walk me through the evidence of Brian Koberger. Now, I want to ask you a couple of questions, okay? So they have his Amazon click history, correct?
Allegedly, yeah.
Do they have any documentation that shows he clicked purchase, any shipping address, anything that shows that that knife was delivered to his residence?
Not to my knowledge, other than that if it was bought in Pennsylvania and it was taken.
But they went to the gift card, right?
Yeah, it was supposedly a gift card. So we don't know if the gift card was purchased for him or someone else, because he did share an account.
Well, I don't think that that's uncommon. I would ask the chat, how many people share a Netflix account? How many people share an Amazon Prime account? How many people share a Hulu account? Everybody does. I'm pretty sure the basic package of all those subscriptions allow you to share with at least another person, or like 2 devices, right? So, okay. So the click history that Les says, I steal my sister's.
Yeah. You know,
everybody steals their siblings' login. Let's be honest.
Yeah. You know what really drives me wild, Bertie, and I just have to bring this up since we're on this subject.
Yeah.
Is, you know, this whole, he bought the knife. His fingerprints were on the knife sheath. That whole thing just really irritates me. He bought an outdoor he bought an outdoor that. But you know what he didn't do? He didn't ditch his phones. He didn't ditch his computer. He didn't ditch his laptop, because they did take a tower. He didn't try to hide anything. And they're over there saying, oh, he did this, this, and that. But yet the most important things that somebody, if they were guilty, would have already ditched everything.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to ask this. If you lose service on your cell phone when you are in a rural area, would it show the network if they pulled the data on your phone that it was turned off, lost service, or does it not know? I've always been curious about that because if he was out stargazing or whatever, so it does show if your phone was turned off.
Mm-hmm.
If you lost service, it also shows that the phone will keep trying to connect.
If
You
there are
went,
no towers in the rural area, you have to see technology is not perfect. Okay. I'm gonna give you an example. I had to go and drop my daughter off at preschool. My husband, I did not know at the time, my ex-husband, by the way, had some tracking on my phone. Now, I've never cheated on my husband, no reason to.
sorry, Phoenix. If this makes a difference in the point you're about to make, read that right there.
Yeah.
If
Exactly.
only
And that's what
carrier
I'm gonna
records are available, they can't tell if the phone was turned off versus just out of range of a tower.
out of range. Exactly. And this is exactly what happened. So my ex tried to tell me I was somewhere that I wasn't, but it showed that I was. And I'm like, go over to that person's house and ask him if I was there. Go ahead. And that's the point I was trying to make, because technology is not perfect. Cell phone records are not perfect, especially tower data. And I don't think they got the advanced timing records, correct?
No, I don't believe that they have. And I think that that was one of the things that they were trying to get.
Yeah, so that is a little bit more accurate. But if the carrier records are available, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know this, did you know that most carriers cannot keep text messaging? So if you deleted your text messaging and in 7 days something happens, sometimes the carrier cannot bring back your text messaging because they don't save that to their networks. They don't save it to their servers.
Yes. And I believe there was a case with Snapchat a while back that really started bringing it to the forefront, because Snapchat only apparently saves
24 hours.
Yes, it's minimal, right? And I think that after, because I believe what had happened, I do not remember the name of the case, but the gist of it is that there was some sort of essay, or maybe it was essay and then murder that involved Snapchat. And Snapchat was asked, do they keep the pictures? And they didn't get held kind of with their feet to the fire for saying our company policies that we keep it for, I think it was a little bit longer than 24 hours, but it was not very long that they store it. And I think a lot of other people think about how expensive the storage is.
It is.
That's what I'm trying to get at. That then once that went through and that case showed Snapchat's not liable, it was a pretty big case. I feel like it was like 5 or 6 years ago. It was before COVID. Does anybody know what that is? Oh man. But anyways, well, whatever it was, it's just like when that happens, other companies, they know. They're like, they're okay. So we don't need to keep our messages longer than Snapchat.
It's just so expensive to keep it on the servers. But not only that, on your phone, on your individual private phone, if you don't erase text, I think it only keeps like 6 months back. If you go back and try to find a text, some of them are deleted.
There's settings. There are settings on an iPhone that, and also with like Microsoft Outlook or Gmail, like they'll delete messages after a certain thing. Now, if you keep them forever, you'll notice your storage tab goes up a lot. And if you look at your storage on your iPhone, usually it's like photos, videos, messages. If you have Telegram downloading, because I believe that like Telegram downloads everything to your phone, there's apps that are always at the top for storage. Now imagine you are one of the big 4 carriers. How much would all of that data storage cost? And if you figured out that Snapchat was able to get away with a 24 to 72 hour window, you'd be like, holy shit, our bottom line went up 90x. We're fine
Oh,
because
yeah.
legally,
Yeah.
Snapchat's off the hook. We are the same type of it's. I don't know. So I agree, Phoenix. I don't think that it's far fetched to think that AT&T just doesn't have it.
Okay. So let me say this. Let me preface this. So I'm the university, and we just had a 4 unaliving associated with our university.
Okay.
And I don't want to put out an alarm into the town because we still don't know who the actual unalivers are. And
Okay.
let's say they did know. Let's say they did know, but they could not put that out there. So that is what the delay was for the 4-day press conference, right? And that was the delay that we see this whole entire time for a trial. What if they are delaying just to figure out who did this? Because the university won't tell. The
Well,
local PD won't tell.
let me ask you what's worse. What's worse? Not just asking you, Phoenix, but also asking the Hive. What do you guys think would be worse from, like, let's say you ran the FBI. What's worse? Not having somebody arrested or telling the truth? Let's say 30 days after the murders, because it was approximately about that, right? When Koberger was arrested, just a little bit more than a month. So what's worse? Telling the truth and saying that we have no idea, or what's safer?
Mm-hmm.
Saying there's no need for the public to be worried.
I don't
Look,
know.
if I ran the
or hearing-
FBI, I'm going to be honest. If I ran the FBI, and you guys can judge me for this, I would probably do not that I wouldn't eventually come forward with the truth, but if I had some sort of investigation or a lead going on and they were actively pursuing that person and then that person was under surveillance, I don't think it's out of my own grasp to make what I would call a quote unquote business decision for how many colleges that have had similar situations, and also at the risk of the group being exposed for failing a mission. I'm trying to put myself in like a director's position. There's something that comes over everybody that gets promoted to a director's position. I'm not saying that I would actually do this. I'm just saying I could see a lot of people, including myself, say and feel the pressure to say, we have somebody. I don't think that's like a stretch. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, your job is on the line. If you were in a parallel investigation and the police department is trying to vet who did this and look at that, and then all of a sudden the FBI tells you who did it and you have to follow their lead because they report to the attorney general, and it's just so odd that the prosecution side has a former state's attorney general on their side now. Well, so you know that there is a federal investigation. You know how that fits into that puzzle. But being a director, you don't ever want to tell your superiors, I don't have an idea. We have a cold case. We have a cold case because the LE and locally is not working with us to hand over who did this.
Well, to that point, let's war game this out. You're the director of the FBI, at least for that area that covers the Northwest.
And the guy we wanted to take the fall for.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm not having anybody in the feds. If that's truly the case and the feds are about to get involved in this, I just want to, I'm curious what the Hive thinks. It's like, I wouldn't put the feds in the forefront. If I thought that there was an investigation going on with the local LE covering up a hazing death, and it's also a huge drug and human trafficking highway, I would say, you know what? I'm going to have that dirty, corrupt police chief get in front of the media and sweat it out. He's going to tell them that everybody's fine. Everybody's safe. We got this covered. And then look at what happens. He resigns.
He retired so we wouldn't lose his
It's a power move, Phoenix. It's a power move.
Yep. Clean out the old dirty cops.
Exactly. They do that shit in corporate America at like sales companies. It happens. You make... So if you have a yes
people
man
under the bus. Yep.
yes, I would say this, like, it's like if you have a yes man that's been promoted, right, to climb the ladder, you know that if this person's climbing the ladder and they're just like the quote unquote yes man, they probably, I guess after a certain point when performance doesn't speak for itself, which I feel like in the Moscow PD starts to come into the picture of like, how well were they performing? I mean, for God's sakes, they didn't even have a drug dog until last year, right? Like, so at what point do you kind of maybe put them front and center stage? All right, spotlight's on you. Darkness to light is kind of what we almost watched with this.
Yep, pretty much. Well, I mean, those people who have moved away from and now open-mindedly are like, this guy couldn't have done this in so many minutes. This guy, and he made all these mistakes, right? If this guy was so smart, how could he make all these simple, stupid mistakes? Because it wasn't, every single one you can check off. And not only that, the shoe doesn't fit. So you must acquit. Okay, that latent shoe print always gets me, man. I'm just going to tell you, because that's how I knew in the documents there was cleanup. Before the cleanup came out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what, when you and Sammy T a couple weeks ago, when Sammy was like, this timeline's already as tight as like, what was your analogy? Like a Britney Spears music video pair of like jeans where when you bend over at your locker, your butt crack shows. Like, she's like, the timeline's already tighter than that. Okay. Like, how are they going to fit a cleanup into it? And then Dateline comes out and goes, well, he sat down on the chair in the room. So like, I just want to know who is buying this. And there obviously a lot of people are. A lot of people are buying this. A lot of people believe it too.
And the parents are all giving different scenarios. I mean, Shadow just said, the Chapin said it's not a crime of passion. And then, obviously.
Why would they say that, Phoenix? Why do you think they would say that? Just on the simplest level.
I think it's their way of saying this was a crime of passion without saying it. They're scared. I'm sure the powers that be in the local area. She's an alumni. I mean, the local powers that be, you don't want to piss anybody off. And so, you kind of just roll with it. They have a business in that area. They're not going to go against,
Well,
I just
what
think
about
that
the 2 a.m. being in the darkest hour on top of that?
I think that was their way to say this happened at 2 a.m. It's not in the timeline. This is their way of communicating the truth. You have to see it. And if you can't see it, it's something that you're just not given. It's an intuitive nature. The Chapins know 100% what happened.
That was a great point. Like, well said, Phoenix. Top dog comment, because I think everybody in here, that probably just hit super hard. If you got it, you got it. You know what I mean?
If you are here watching and learning, then you're getting it. You got it.
Yes, exactly. Because
it's in our human nature to figure out. Okay, I've always used this analogy with my kids. I asked my kids one time, I said, would you rather be the person who is standing on the corner and sees the accident happen and you're able to tell everyone what happened? Or are you the person that comes up and asks what happened? Which one would you rather be?
Is that a trick question?
No, it's not a trick question. It's how our brain thinks. Would you rather be the witness telling everybody what happened? Or would you rather be the person that walks up and says, oh my God, what happened?
I would probably, just based on kind of where like my moral compass is, I would rather witness it.
Yes, because you will be the one to likely most tell the story. You are firsthand witnessing it. The secondhand person that comes up and says what happened will go and tell other people what may not have happened.
Yes. That's a great question. Honestly, that is a very good question, because it comes down to, it's kind of like something that we've touched on briefly in the stream. Phoenix, when people get a little bit political, and it's like left and right really doesn't matter, right? It's two wings on a bird nosediving straight into hell in a fixed market in a land of justice that is presented as a land of laws. Let me just kind of finish this rant for everybody. I was listening to this podcast where this guy was talking about how the United States, and I know we have a lot of people from other countries tuning in, but in the United States, we are not a land of laws. We're a land of justice. And the example that was used to talk about how we are a land of justice, meaning that you're judged by your peers on if you broke a law, is it just, right? So he said, let's say that someone is in the middle of the road and they're about to get hit by a semi, and you tackle them out of the way. You saved their life. They didn't get ran over by a semi truck. Well, you saved their life, but let's say they try to sue you for assault. Because on a basic level of the law, you tackled them. You did assault them. But that's where the jury of your peers, in being a land of justice, not a land of laws, hence the reason we have a justice system, comes in and says, well, I think that you were just in assaulting him, quote unquote, tackling him out of the way of a semi truck to save his life. That has been blurred and confused and crossed 10 ways to Sunday in this country. Time and time again, because of money, because of corruption, because of power, because of corporate interest, because of political interest. And there is no way that if you were to ask somebody on a real level outside of a money grab, are you okay with a person tackling you to save your life from being ran over because you're in the middle of the road and a semi truck's about to hit you? I would say 99 out of 100 people say yes. But because of this stupid legal system that's transpired where you could sue somebody for saving your life because you're going to say they assaulted you, it's ruined everything. It's fake justice.
I would agree. I mean, we're seeing it right now with the whole Trump and Elon thing. And I just have to bring it up because, you know, I'm independent. My guy didn't win the ticket, and that's okay because he's in doing some good work now. But this whole Elon and Trump thing, I think it's just a ploy because it's about money. If you look at the big picture, it's all about money. Elon was sent in with Doge to go and, you know, cut all the spending, cut the fat. And then we have the bill being passed by Trump's administration with all the fat that was cut. And I'm thinking to myself, it's just another pot that the hands go in to exchange the money. And we don't have a say in it, right? Because we're not up there voting to pass this stuff. We had a say in it in an election, and boy, did a lot of people not see what was coming. So all of us have to suffer.
Whenever I see stuff like that, where it's so like it takes the media by storm, I think to myself, this is on purpose.
Yeah.
This is on purpose. Oh, I'm curious why Joe Biden didn't give your government contracts away. Maybe he should have. Okay, with the whole SpaceX and all that stuff. Let me just say this.
The EVs.
Where my brain goes is at the end of the day, you can hate them or love them. For both of them, they're smart guys. Their IQs are probably higher than most. You might not like them, right? They're not your husbands. They're not your brothers. They're not your friends. But at the end of the day, I don't think you get to either one of their levels if you're not smart in a way, right? I think we can all agree with that. You can hate them or love them. It's not here to debate anything. But I think what I'd be curious for the Hive is like, so you got Elon diving into government overspend, and you got Trump passing this bill, which is government overspend. My brain goes to like, is this just meant to put it in the forefront of the media so it makes people think? And they're like, oh, maybe the people should be more involved in where their tax dollars goes at the end of the day. Is that the goal? I don't know. It just
I don't
seems
know.
too easy. It seems like such
yeah.
a low IQ fight on Twitter or X, whatever it is, that it's like, it seems so staged.
It's
Yes,
a tit
it's
for
like-
tat. Just kind of like what
Exactly.
we're watching here with the Idaho 4.
Yes. So like, okay, I'm going to do a 3-number poll here, Phoenix. We haven't done this in a couple of streams. Type a 1 if you think that the news is right. Brian Koberger did this by himself. Type a 2 if this is a psyop / witness protection. Or type a 3 if this is a drug / frat / cover up hit.
I would definitely say the last. And here they come rolling in, Birdie.
Yep, let's
2
see
and
what you got.
3s.
3s, 2, 3,
2,
2.5, 3,
3s.
3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Wow. Now, Phoenix, do you think that this chat might know a thing or two about
Oh, hell
how
yeah.
the system works? I do too. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. This chat is awesome. We have got some Hive Mind, I would say exquisite minds. Some of the brightest minds that I've seen in a long time in a chat. They think for themselves. They know themselves. They do their research. They do their homework. They are not here to be told BS. They want to know what we know and what we see. And if their instincts are correct, and they hit it right on the head.
Do you know what a sign of, like, in my mind, of high IQ is? On the simplest level, it's understanding what theorizing is.
Mhm.
What is a theoretical reason? What is a theoretical way this could have happened? And you don't get emotional about it. That's a high IQ trait, in my opinion. That you can say, well, what if it was happening this way? What if
Ooh,
it,
we
you know
have
what I
an awesome thinker here. Sorry to interrupt you, Birdie,
You're
but
good, you're
someone
good.
said
What'd you say?
4. It involves number 4. It involves police cover up. All of what you said plus 1.
Yeah. I mean, that at the end of the day, see, that is a very high IQ comment, because that
Yes.
sums up all of them.
And that's what
So,
you see in
shout
this
out
picture
to-
here.
Shout out to Elmira. Good job.
And look at that's
And welcome to
exactly
the
what you
Hive.
see in the picture. Welcome to the Hive.
Yep.
And
It is
how do
exactly
we
what you see here. Yep.
how do we get real justice if these things are happening in our communities and they're not telling us the truth because they want to cover it up? Because think about the university and how much money they would lose. Think about the police and how much funding they would lose.
Well, I've referenced it 3 times already.
Mhm.
The Brett Favre Netflix thing is the
Yep.
best explanation. If people want a visual of how easy it is in a smaller community with a little bit of power. Like, look, is Brett Favre a Hall of Famer quarterback? Am I a diehard season ticket holder Packers fan that loves
Mhm.
him? Yes. But when I see that, it makes me want to puke,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, he's good at a sport, everybody. And if a guy who's good at throwing a pigskin can manipulate welfare funds to build a volleyball court for his daughter, what can oligarchs, politicians, giant corporations do? It makes me want to puke.
I love how you say that because that's the bottom line.
It is the bottom line. And yes, Susan says, leave Brett alone, Birdie. Hey, it tugs at my heartstrings, but you guys get what I'm trying to say on a bigger picture. Like, if we're really talking about the issue here as a
Yep.
whole, it's that
And-
it's that corruption's not hard. It's not as complex all of the time as we might think.
Yep. Rola's in the house, and somebody had a really good comment that they tore down the Hoax house, right? They tore down the house where this allegedly happened. I still debate that it happened outside and they staged it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
What if there was bullet holes in the walls?
Oh, absolutely. And I wonder, I would wish I was Ann Taylor that day, or a fly on the wall when she walked through there. because they were not going to let anyone in there.
Did you notice, like, there's a handful of pictures of her on scene, right? It was like news. But
Yeah.
like, did you notice she did not spend that much time in the house?
No, but she had people that had cameras writing down things.
Right, but I'm saying herself.
Yeah. I mean,
wonder
I
why.
really wouldn't.
I want to know what
wanna
Brian
go in there.
Koberger told her. I want to know what Brian Koberger has told her.
I mean, would
happened.
you want to go in there
Yeah, I would.
to find out and see what happened?
I think my curiosity would make it impossible for me to not go in. Yes. What about you?
I don't know. I mean, I would probably, I don't know. I just get this like bad juju thing, right? You step through the door frame, you're in for it. It opens you up to the possibilities of what are you going to see, right? So I think a lot of people in that community felt that way, and that's why they tore the house down, other than there's a cover up going on.
Or look at what Jamie just said. Maybe there wasn't much to see.
Yeah, that's something that I was thinking about too. Because if this did happen outside, because on some of those audios, you can hear them outside, and those two apartments, the Queen Road apartments, the sound travels right down the middle of the corridor.
So, do you remember how Nash laid it out so wonderfully about Ann Taylor's strategy? Where
God, I love her. Yeah.
She was an awesome guest. I hope everybody in the Hive enjoyed that if you were on that stream. Because talking to her off air, just it's so cool when you get to see how somebody, like, as a person, thinks. She tells a story about how she was bedridden for 3 years and she had nothing to do outside of look into everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable, but I just wonder if she hit the nail on the head perfectly. I feel like she did as far as the description, but I wonder if she's right. Did Ann Taylor?
Uno?
Yeah, the reverse Uno. Did Ann Taylor go to Brian Koberger and say, "Can you be patient? Because we're not just going to prove that you're innocent. We're going to burn this whole motherfucker down." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see her throw the match. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Because what others, like, I'm sorry, but Ann Taylor, yes, I don't think Ann Taylor's any public defender.
No, she knows what
She's
she's
not.
up
She
against.
knows the system. Yes, she knows it. She's good. She's elite. And you could pick her apart. Everybody can Monday morning quarterback, right? But what I'm trying to say is, like, if she went to Brian Koberger and she said, "Can you be patient? Because not only are we going to prove that you're innocent, we're going to prove the corruption that's been happening here. And it's going to prevent this from happening to anybody like yourself ever again."
I have never. What's the first thing I told you when I started talking about this case? That this dude had autism. And what if they're trying to railroad the system? Because see, the justice system is not meant for those with disabilities like this. They are not. They don't know how to house them. They don't know how to answer to them. They don't know how to engage with them. They don't know their nervous tics. They don't know. They just don't know. Our system is not meant for this. And the reason I say this is because I know firsthand. Let's just leave it at that. But with that being said, I'm just going to tell you, my son, his dad and his stepmom didn't know how to handle him, and they didn't want to return him to me. And I had to go through this whole big legal battle, and I got him back, but they sent him to juvenile detention for 2 weeks. And he had such a meltdown. No one could deal with him. No one yes. Believe me, I have a.
Well, we don't need to go into the details. I'm sorry for even just reacting that way. I apologize. Sorry.
And everyone in there said, he doesn't belong here. We don't have services for him. We don't have the care that he needs. We don't. And this was over a freaking meltdown that they could not handle. And this whole case kind of gaslights me to, they're asking, what if Nash was right? There's a reverse Uno card. And what if Brian told her, I know stuff that could take people down. I seen things that I don't think I was supposed to, and that's why they targeted me. So can we just be patient? I've never seen a case, Bertie, where the defense is having to prove themselves innocent and give perpetrators.
You know, you and I talked about this probably on like a stream and a half. That's all we've ever really mentioned about it. But Judge Hippler not knowing how to describe anything about the autism spectrum was concerning. Do you remember that phase? It was like
Yes.
2 or 3 like of the recorded hearings where
Yes.
he just couldn't wrap his head around it. He was either worried about saying it wrong, or he was worried about maybe getting canceled as a judge because he didn't want to offend somebody, or he didn't know. But my spidey senses say he didn't know.
And Bertie, I've done my homework on Judge Hippler, and he runs the mental health court. If you know what that means, he is in the courts dealing with people with mental issues. He is like the ultimate guy, but he's yet not educated and trained in autism. How can that not be to where he's making decisions that, no, you can't call him out, no, these behaviors, you can't do this, you can't do that, when maybe he's not been schooled in this?
Which I don't know if you can fault a judge for not being schooled in knowing what autism is, but in a case by case 2 years into it type of situation, when you don't even remember the name of the disorder that the defense attorney has stated for the person who's about to get put in front of a effing firing squad, is, to me, that is concerning. It's very concerning. It's
And I'm not saying they should be lenient on him because he has this issue. I'm just saying,
I get what you mean.
In general, I'm not saying he should have some special treatment, but what I'm saying is the DP is pretty harsh for somebody with autism, period. Now, they could be as intelligent as Albert Einstein, be book smart, but when it comes to common sense or public engagement or social skills, they're lacking, and it's hard for them to comprehend and understand. So what it may take you and me like maybe 10 minutes to comprehend, it may take him hours to process.
Well, look at JG's comment. I think they hit the nail on the head. Judges know the law. That's all that is required.
They do.
And that is so well said, JG. And Phoenix, I know you've shared some stuff about autism. I have a cousin who is autistic, and he is so smart, and he's so incredibly gifted. Again, he's my cousin. I see him on holidays, birthdays. Like, I see him maybe 10 times a year. But
and I just want to comment real quick.
Well, go ahead. I don't want to forget.
People with autism, they have different neural pathways. And what I'm trying to say is that their processing pathways are different. But for those who say that it's not a mental diagnosis, it's in the DSM-5. There is a diagnostic criteria, persistent defects in reciprocal social communication and social interaction. And I'm not saying, some people are like, oh no, yes, it is actually in the DSM. But I want to address the comment that said not everybody has like the same type of autism. And we know that there's different levels on the spectrum. Some are high functioning. Some are very bright and intelligent. and create and do amazing things. I mean, some of them are at MIT, right? I mean, if you think about autism, they're just a different type of people. They seem socially awkward. I'd agree. But, that's kind of like saying somebody with ADHD can't focus. And that's not true, because
Well,
people with ADHD can focus. It just
I,
takes a little bit more.
a high functioning individual on the autism spectrum should not be discredited as far as getting a pass that it's just, well, they're high functioning. No, that's bullshit. It's a real thing. It's not to get defensive on it, because unless you've been around it, and like I've said, I've been around it like 30%. My cousin's about to turn 21. But what I've noticed is that you get to know them just like you get to know anybody else. But it takes longer. It takes a little bit longer. Even just he's my first cousin. Like I said, see you at Thanksgiving, see you at Christmas, see you at birthdays. It takes longer than the normal person, if that's the way to put it, if that makes sense. I'm trying to say that because it takes a while to learn the ticks. It takes a while to learn the triggers. Like my cousin has an auditory thing. When it gets loud, overstimulation, right? Dogs barking, people cheering at a sporting event, things like that. Well, if you just met them, you wouldn't know that that's like been a theme. So it can apply even as a high functioning, quote unquote, person that's on the spectrum. To say that that's not something that should be considered when in trial, not even because of let's even just take crime out of it, for the jury to know. Because if the jury's going to read body language, if the jury's going to want to see how he walks into court, if the jury's going to want to see how he responds to questions, and you don't know that, that is going to affect the average person's judgment. I think we should all ask ourselves that question. If you know somebody that is high functioning and on the spectrum, walk into court and you had no idea, versus it's at least mentioned, how big of a difference does that make as far as body language? Maybe small comments to their lawyer during witness testimony. I think it makes all of the difference. So that's just my 2 cents from my experience. It's not like I don't get mad about it. I don't get triggered about it. It's just, if people are trying to say that that's a lie as far as a defense thing, I don't think you've been around somebody who's like ever been a highly functioning spectrum autistic person, because I feel like, just again, having a cousin that's like that in Phoenix, I'm sure you saw it. Like, you can see it in the traffic stops. Sammy T said the same thing. You can just tell. You can't lie. You need the explanation. You need the clarification. It's a pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I'm in.
Yeah,
Can you hear
are.
me?
Yep.
Yeah, it dropped and I had to go out and come back in. But yeah, you can totally see it in one of the police stops. I think even you can see it in the Indiana stop too. When he was communicating, well, I've already been pulled over. I don't know what's going on, right? So, I mean, just the reactions, you can tell that he really wants to understand what he did wrong.
Yeah. So, I guess moving on from just it in general, nobody here, spectrum or not, I don't think would give a pass to a quadruple murder if they did it. As far as they should get off. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody would ever think that.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, And then they can't explain some of his behaviors. My son hates to have his hands dirty. He hates germs. He wants gloves. If he wants gloves, I'll let him wear gloves. I'm not going to tell him, oh, that's weird, right? It's for his peace of mind to know that his hands are clean. He likes his hair a certain way. You know, I mean, I can't make him cut his hair the way I want him to. He's getting a little older now, but even when he was younger, you know, the impact of just something so simple like getting a haircut and the hairdresser nicking his ear, he never wanted to get a haircut again. So I always told him we're going to go for a trim because the word cut is associated with bleeding and he doesn't want to be cut. So those are the ways that he thinks, that he interprets things. I can only imagine being arrested and being told you are being arrested for unaliving 4 people and be like, I could never do something like that. I
Right.
study people who do things like this.
And I just, again, I don't know the context of this comment that I just put on screen where David says, yep, so autistic. Well, it's not coming at you, David. I don't know the context. You could be replying to somebody, so I'm not going to put anybody on blast. It's just one of those, it's a comment that gets me thinking where I'm like, again, my cousin can pull up, you could pull up an iPhone, you could go to the emojis, he can name every flag for every country and the capital of every country, and he can name every constellation. And so to think that if he's so autistic, he couldn't be a PhD in criminology is wrong. They absolutely could be. And it's absolutely correct. They could be the best.
But you know what was interesting? Someone sent something to me the other day and they said, have you tried to send Brian Koberger a message? I said, yeah, you have to go to Getting Out. That's the app, the website that they use in Idaho. Select Ada County for the jail, and then his inmate number will pop up. He's the only Brian Koberger in there. And I said, yeah, I've sent him a message. I haven't heard anything back, but I can only imagine you know, how he's doing in prison, because they were concerned that he's being treated fairly in prison. Those are his constitutional rights, to be treated fairly. And I said, you know, that makes me kind of curious about his routines, because people on the spectrum have to have everyday routines. And I'm sure that jail has, you know, just kind of like the military, it's all routine. So I would only hope that he's adjusting well. But you know, for those of you who wanted to send him a message and give him some support, you can go ahead and contact him that way. But it also made me think about, you know, how is he handling being in jail?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to pull this video up here. So to wrap all this up, I believe that the point of the theory of this specific stream was to say that if the narrative is going to be, and the narrative on the motive is going to be that Brian Koberger killed them because they're beautiful, because he's a loner, because he knows criminology. Well, you better be able to logically bridge build that a narrative around a motive, that there was a hazing death that some people knew about in a house where a quadruple homicide happened, where the feds may have been aware of it and understood that the local law enforcement covered it up with the university to not miss out on millions of dollars of tuition and a ton of enrollment rates dropping. Frame a student that was recommended for a internship that got turned down, and knowing that he's there and knowing his entire profile, like you guys heard how much cops from the body cam footage of the nighttime noise complaint, how much those cops look into people from other police departments. You guys hear whoever that officer is go into, like, it's background checks. We actually send somebody to their hometown. We send somebody out there. So to think that they wouldn't know about Brian Koberger is wild. So if you can't logically bridge build that narrative is at least equivalent to the one that's been put out as far as motive goes. I don't know what to tell you because it's too clean. The motive is too clean to be real, in my opinion. And I don't know, Phoenix, if you have any thoughts on that, but
I'm just baffled that there is no real motive. I mean, don't you think that the papers and the news and the local journalists would have already said the motive was X, Y, and Z?
yeah, everybody's got a motive but Brian Koberger.
Yeah, isn't that weird that the only person that doesn't really have a motive per se? I mean, this unaliving looks like a crime of passion to me. And the other part of this unaliving looks like hazing or frat gone wrong, jealousy. And that's what it is in a nutshell. And if the girls knew something that they were going to rat out and tell everyone, then that's a whole nother dynamic. So it is what it is. And they just can't say, okay, there was 5 people, 6 people who did this. There were some lookouts. There was some other involvement. It really is a shit show. And then just leave it at that and hold those people accountable. They're trying to send somebody who is potentially innocent to a firing squad that I can't wrap my brain around. Now, if he's guilty, on the slight chance, if he's guilty, they better have some damn good evidence other than a knife sheath, DNA, that may have been transferred or manipulated.
Phoenix, if he was guilty, this case would be over.
True. Very true.
If Brian Koberger was a single weirdo loner criminology incel that transferred to a city and less than 3 months later committed a quadruple murder with a K-bar he ordered off of Amazon because he was stalking them, this case would be over. I would argue the case wouldn't even be national news, yet alone world news.
That says a lot for our justice system, doesn't it?
We're not a justice system. I don't think we are.
Well, you have a good point there, because if you see that case and you say something's not right here, something is definitely not right. But why wait all this time? Why?
Because at the end of the day, whether there's a parallel investigation going on federally or not, whether it's a cover up, whether they don't know, at the end of the day, it's because we're not being told the truth.
Agree.
Simplest form. And that should piss people off. It should piss people off because how many times can this be done? How many times can we have a show trial, a trial by media, a trial by public opinion for ratings, for views, it's damn near a movie. Right, Phoenix?
That's what I've been saying. They're showing us a movie right in front of our eyes that will change the law eventually, somehow, some way. And don't look here, be distracted, because we're doing what we want to do over here.
Do you know, I'm going to play a video here. Oh, shoot. Do you know that somebody sent me a Hive Mind fine? I just saw something about the Delphi murders. Do you know that somebody told me that Delphi and Idaho 4 are connected? And that individuals who were on scene at Delphi were present within 5 hours of Idaho 4. I didn't put it on a Hive Mind fine because I actually unread the email so that it pops up as unread because I didn't have time to dig into it. Has anybody heard? Oh, Dana. So it was Dana. Yeah. Like, look at that. I mean, that is unbelievable. And I have never heard that. I've never heard that. I literally just Googled it. And there's like minimal stuff about it, but individuals seen on camera, Phoenix.
Individuals, as in somebody who I've named before.
Being who? If you want to say it, you don't have to.
Yeah, I'd rather not say, but if it's who I think it is, I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, I believe that if I remember correctly, the email stated names, and it was like, hold on, what?
If they're
And
part of an agency, yeah, I agree.
yes, exactly. So, anyways, I don't know if the chat would be interested in that. I just wanted to acknowledge that because that blew my mind.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, just like the naked guy we heard running the streets in Moscow that night it happened, was that Ethan running around and they got him?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, Phoenix, I think at times Ethan is the one that we see walking into that Linda Lane footage.
I think so too.
I
think,
really do.
yeah.
And you hear the gun cock, and then you hear that they were originally shot. I mean, you hear a it's come on. If you've ever racked a gun, there's very few things that sound like that.
Yep.
So I want to play this video here. I'm going to let this play until Phoenix, either you say stop or somebody. This is from Idaho 4 Revealed. It was posted 4 months ago. It's called "The Details Are in the Devil," a timeline, Kohberger framed. Phoenix and I never come out and just straight up say Kohberger is framed. We say that he's a patsy. We say that he's involved. This video is very interesting, and again, it's only got less than 5,000 views 4 months ago. Idaho 4 Revealed is the creator. I'm going to let this play, and I'd be curious to hear what the chat's thoughts are of this, and then I'll do 10 minutes of Q&A, Phoenix, for the chat with you and me at the end here. Sound good?
I'm with you, boss.
All right.
We talked with them one-on-one, and they, you looked at them and said, please just tell me that there's going to be somebody. And they stepped out of their comfort zones to comfort Christy and the families, to like, hey, we're on top of this. We got it. We're going to.
And they did. Know. That was the only thing that I left that day when we met with them. It was like, I believe it was December 13th. And
it made a big impact on you.
I'm going to ask you both. I said, who's in charge here? And they told us, and I said, I'm going to ask you about the same question. How do you feel, 0 to 100%, that this case will be solved? And I asked him, and he said, he looked at me and he said, 100%. And then I said, your turn. And he looked at me, and the second one looked at me very intensely. I mean, the first guy did too, but that look that I got from...
Don't say it, because I won't get nobody.
I know, and I was like... And that was right around the time that they were swirling his name.
I'm going to go back. Just body language to me is huge.
And
it made a big impact on you.
I'm going to ask you both. I said, who's in charge here? And they told us, and I said, I'm going to ask you about the same question. How do you feel, 0 to 100%, that this case will be solved? And I asked him, and he said, he looked at me and he said, 100%. And then I said, your turn. And he looked at me, and the second one looked at me very intensely. I mean, the first guy did too, but that look that I got from...
Don't say it, because I won't get nobody.
I know, and I was like... And that was right around the time that they were swirling his name around. And he said, 100%, this will be solved. And I was like, that's all I need to know.
So if you can't see that at the top, it says on the 13th day of December 2022 at approximately 7:54 o'clock a.m., the following peace officers, Detective Lawrence Mowry, served the search warrant heretofore issued upon the place and or persons described therein as directed in said search warrant. Entrance was obtained by, so I don't know if you guys can see that at the top, but
So the Gonzalez family, Kaylee Gonzalez's family, one of the victims has hired a lawyer to sort of help them navigate this process. Talked to him today, and he told me that they had a meeting with police. They're trying to improve the communication. Listen to a little bit of what he told me earlier today. Have you or the family received any new updates on the investigation?
Well, part of our delay was we met with the investigators yesterday. We met with the prosecutor of the investigators, Chief Fry, and had a meeting with all of them. Part of our that meeting, actually, the kind of the theme of the meeting was two things: was accountability and communication. We had a lot of questions that we went in with. Most of them didn't get answered because they're keeping most of the information close to the vest. But that being said, we also wanted to talk to them about communication. We feel like they haven't been communicating with the families, all of the families.
So they are trying to have better communication. He mentioned, the families were frustrated. They were learning about things through press releases, and they're hoping now that they'll have a more open dialogue. And he did basically tell me right now they have faith in the investigation and they are hopeful.
well, I can answer the first question. If you had probable cause, you wouldn't have to use a legal loophole for the IGG and get a suspect's DNA 2,000 miles away from their parents' trash can and tie it back to a family member for trace DNA that now is really come out that it's not touch DNA. It's like mitochondrial DNA. So that answers the question A. And on which date was PC established? What does PC mean in this case, Phoenix, do you think?
Probable cause.
Okay, that's what I thought too. I just didn't know if it was I didn't know if it meant to say PCA, but which
So
date
I think
was it?
that established around December the 15th or so? Or maybe it was around that time frame. They were already tracking him, but according to the FBI guy, it was passed down on the 14th, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I remember something about the 14th.
I also just want to give a quick shout out to everybody that did donate to the stream here. Thank you guys again so much for that. The best hive mind in the game. But anyways, real quick, the answer to question A should be enough.
This needs to be out in the open. I'll give you a couple of examples. The state filed last June its motion for protective order of the IGG materials. That motion was filed in public. It's on the public record. People can print that and read that and do all day long. And that had information that was negative about Mr. Koberger in it. So that's out there in the public. But that order was to protect information, the IGG information, that they say details how the state got to Brian in the first place.
Doesn't that just hit different now, seeing that, Phoenix?
Yeah, because that information was given by the FBI.
Right.
Which does not make sense in this case. It's like the FBI has been guiding this case the entire time and telling Ellie, no, this is the individual. You have to go with this individual.
And look at what Mommy Ball just said. Mitochondrial travels through mothers only. So what they found didn't match the dad. I don't know enough about it to speak even in theoretical terms, but I've read exactly that. That is such a great comment because it matches the entire trend of the DNA on the knife sheath, Phoenix, doesn't it?
Yes. 100%.
Great
And you know,
comment.
they've already ruled that they cannot use the IGG tip, which was the FBI lead.
Correct.
And so how are they going to introduce this in court is going to be interesting beyond belief.
Yep, exactly. And Phoenix, I have to pee again, but I'm gonna let this play, so I'll be back
Okay,
in
run.
a minute.
Yeah, y'all have to be so proud of her. And she was taken away from us far too soon. Can you tell us what the authorities have been telling you? We want to do anything that we can to help you to get justice for your daughter and the rest of the victims. What are they telling you?
They're telling us that there's so much evidence that it's going to take a lot of time to process it all. This wasn't like a pinpoint crime. This person was sloppy. He did whatever. When I say he, obviously you can't say that. That's just me. But he made a mess, and there's a mess there, and they're going to have to go through that point by point, and that's going to take a lot of time. That's why they reached out to other facilities to help them with that lab work.
They do have a mobile unit on site that they said that they're able to really expedite things with this mobile unit. Hopefully, they're reaching out to other DNA processing type companies such as like 23andMe to get involved. They have not confirmed that they have DNA from this person. They just said that they have a ton of evidence. And evidently today with the new task force, the new FBI task force on site and the FBI, of course, and Idaho State Police, they said that they were able to pull a ton of evidence from the house today.
Yeah.
And they're processing that.
So
it just takes time.
Did I miss anything, Phoenix?
No, not really.
Okay.
They were just going over saying they had a mobile unit to test the DNA and that they could get this person. Just right. Who is this person?
There's no music. It's not paused.
Basically, that the killer made a mess.
We will continue to put all of our resources towards investigating and bringing this to a resolution. Here's what we've determined so far. On the evening of November 12th, Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mulligan were at a local bar and were later at a food truck in downtown Moscow. They arrived home at approximately 1:45 a.m. on the morning of November 13th. Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were at the Sigma Chi house before also arriving home at approximately 1:45 a.m. Two surviving roommates were also out in the community, and they returned home at approximately 1 a.m. and did not wake up until later that morning.
Do you guys have any idea if the killer's still within the community, or are you looking outside the community for the killer in terms of their physical location?
We are looking everywhere that evidence would lead us. I can't say if the person's here. I can't say what community the person's in. We're utilizing every resource we can to make that location of that individual.
Hey, Birdie.
And part of that is...
This is Chief Fry at the time. Why is he standing behind a university podium and not the Moscow Police Department?
Well, I actually, it's funny. I never noticed that until I feel like you and I have been streaming together so much. I knew exactly where you were going with that. I don't know, but my first thought is like, this seems like I know it's not a fundraising event. It seems like a public appearance on behalf of the university. And did you know that their enrollment rates have gone up significantly since this. How does that actually happen?
I don't know. I mean, have they really gone up, or are they padding the numbers?
Well, I don't. That's a great question, but I think it takes some balls to put it out there in this case that your enrollment rates have actually gone up.
But not only that, I mean, we've seen the Gonzalez family outside of the Moscow Police Department. We've seen that there, but why is this happening 7 days later at the university? Obviously, they're tied into the community pretty well, because if one fluctuates in money dropping, then the whole community drops. They write less tickets. They have less, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I agree.
I was just curious why he's standing in a pulpit that looks like the university. So
it's a good question.
Safety of our community is paramount, and that's why we brought in the resource that we brought in to keep our community as safe as we can.
Being so close to the border, does that make it kind of automatically an interstate investigation? Can you comment on that?
I cannot comment on that. I'm not even aware.
If you look in Washington at all, I guess, for...
We're looking everywhere. I'm going to take 2 more questions.
Do you still believe this attack was done by one perpetrator? And if so, how does one individual kill 4 people at night and not wake up the other 2 roommates?
Shout out to whoever that was at this time.
yes, that's critical thinking.
You got some giant cojones on you at a University of Idaho, whatever type of meeting, to ask the police chief that to his face. There's probably booster alumni type of attendance, and you just said
dropped it.
F it. That's unbelievable work by this reporter.
Our investigation will continue to look at all avenues of that investigation. I cannot disclose any of that information. I don't even know that information at this point in time. And that's
Look at this. Oops. Look at how red his cheeks got.
Yeah, blood pressure. They're spot on.
Wow.
He's put under the gun. He doesn't know anything that's going on, because remember, that tip's coming from the FBI.
If anybody in the Hive can track down that reporter, Jamie just said she's an official member of the Hive. Phoenix, could you imagine getting her on to interview her? I'm actually serious. Like, sometimes I say, like, oh, I'd love to have them. This, whoever this is. Oops.
45 and they're out in the wake up.
Killers still within the community, or are you looking outside the community for the killer?
Utilizing so we brought. I'm going to take 2 more questions.
Oh shoot, I can't find it. When you guys rewatch it, or if you do rewatch it,
Body language. Yep.
whoever that is, Phoenix, tell me that wouldn't be an unbelievable guest.
Hey, if she's a member of the chat, invite her up next time we go live, and we would love to pick her brain. I'm sure there's other questions that didn't make the cut.
Ramalama said she's dead. Are you trolling?
What?
Dead in a car accident. No shit.
No
Shut
way.
up.
Is that the person who people have been telling me about?
Hang on, Ramalama, are you if you're trolling, we can all get it, but is that serious? She said no, there's a video about it. What the fuck?
Holy moly. I'll look into that.
Does anybody know her name?
Was she the one that was hit head on by the car accident? Wrong
Right
lady.
here. Her.
She looks familiar. I don't know. Is she with the Independent?
Oh my gosh.
Share the video.
Ramalama, on God, you're not trolling.
Who is that?
Oh,
it's a different reporter. Okay. I know that there was one that was hit head on.
Well, also, let me just say, Ramalama, please don't hesitate if you know something like that in the future to say that. I know. Yeah. I don't think you're trolling either. I wasn't trying to make it seem like you were. I'm just curious because, wow, we should be looking into what reporters have been killed, right, Phoenix?
Yeah. I remember the one with the head-on car accident, and then there was another one that was odd that was linked to this. So yeah, I'll dig a little more.
Okay, yeah. So whoever this is, though, if they are alive, seriously, that would be wild. Because if you're asking that question to the police chief at a U of I press conference, she knows. You have to have known at that point, right?
Well, she was asking the tough questions that other people weren't.
But like, why would you ask that question as a reporter unless you've heard something else?
Yeah, to diffuse the rumors. But look at how he responds with his body language.
The rosy cheeks. It's hard for me to even look at that, police chief. I'll continue. I digress.
So Rolo says a tractor suddenly appeared in front of her. I'll look into that one.
Yeah, Rolo too. Thank you for being in the chat.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. We'd love to have you up too. By the way, not just if you want to be on a Hive Mind roundtable, birdiebombshell00@gmail.com, but also just for like guests like Rolo, if you want to pick a date, email me. That's the best way to find a date.
Okay, so I remember that Fairy, aka Destiny, she had a channel. I remember that, Chrissy, and I'll look back into that. I remember that.
Okay, all right, I'll let it keep going.
Continue to look at all avenues of that investigation. I cannot disclose any of that information. I don't even know that information at this point in time, and that's why we're continuing to investigate.
Stop it right there. For him to say he doesn't know, that means they're not the lead investigators in this case. The FBI is.
They have that. You know what? That is such a good pickup, Phoenix. It's almost like saying the equivalent of, I can't talk about an ongoing investigation.
Because
it's
I don't
really
know
what it translates to. They just don't know.
Especially if it was handed over to the FBI, and then that's why the FBI gave them the lead and they took out Brian.
Oh my God. River Birch just said, go back, let us hear the question. I will go back because it's a very this is an epic question. It really is. I mean, how many people today would have the balls to ask what this woman just did on what date was this, Phoenix? December?
I think it was the November 20th, 7 days after.
Oh, all right, here we go. Ask yourself honestly, would you do this?
Utilizing every resource we can to make that location of that individual. And part of that is the safety of our community is paramount, and that's why we brought in the resource that we brought in to keep our community as safe as we can.
Being so close to the border, does that make it kind of automatically an interstate investigation? Can you comment on that?
I cannot comment on that. I'm not even aware.
If you look in Washington at all, I guess,
We're looking everywhere. I'm going to take 2 more questions.
I hate to keep pausing it, but even to that point, he's clearly not doing shit in this investigation.
Nope.
That's the most obvious way ever. I'm not even aware of that. What do you mean? It was a very straightforward question. Because they're on the border of Washington and Idaho, et cetera, et cetera. How are you not aware of that? Well, you're only not aware of that if you're not involved.
Maybe it was on a need-to-know basis.
Exactly.
Do you still believe this attack was done by?
All right, here is the question that we were talking about.
Do you still believe this attack was done by one perpetrator? And if so, how does one individual kill 4 people at night and not wake up the other 2 roommates?
Our investigation will continue to look at all avenues of that investigation. I cannot disclose any of that information. I don't even know that information at this point in time, and that's why we're continuing to investigate.
You don't know how this happened without the other two roommates hearing it or waking up or noticing?
We do not.
What a joke. What a joke. That, to me, is unacceptable.
Look at this statement. Many of us recall that initially the Idaho State Lab found nothing on the sheath.
Oh, and Phoenix, you can explain it or I can explain it. Do you remember when the knife sheath was sent for testing to the first lab? What did they find?
I don't think they found anything because it was such a small trace amount that it could have been smudged or transferred. I think they altered it, didn't they, to double it in size?
It went to a second lab.
Yeah. Because they didn't have the capability, right?
I thought it came back something not inconclusive, but it was like that same type of it. I
They
would
needed
equate
more processing.
Yeah, I would
I don't
equate it
think
to
they
like
had, yeah.
I would equate it to like Brian Laundrie's autopsy came back inconclusive. So they got somebody that pretty much I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah,
but like
would say it.
yeah, well, they got somebody that does like dinosaur bones, like anthropologist type shit.
They just went out and got the answer they wanted.
Dude, I'm convinced that Brian Laundrie killed a male solo hiker. That degradation of a body would line up way more with that timeline if he just staged the scene of his fiance. To think that if he's on the run, he has the help of his family, he wouldn't kill a male solo hiker, and people go, oh, he pulled out his own tooth. Well, yeah, if I was on the run for murder and desperate, and I thought that I had the help of my parents and I was around how many bodies of water, pulling out a tooth would be the least of my worries, to leave it amongst the bones. And then to have a partial match on a femur, the same femur, 2 hits.
Well, you know the rumor now about Brian Kohberger going around that allegedly he's a serial killer and there's other bodies that he's left out there and they didn't want anyone.
Phoenix. There's going to be a documentary about this case.
But I'm just telling you, that's the new rumor out there, that there's other bodies connected now.
If I was the prosecutor and Steve G was saying that, how do you handle that? You'd have to like, I'm joking when I say this. It's like you'd have to like hide in the bushes every time he interviews and like blow dart him. Yeah. Every time he starts to talk, you'd just be like, and like, just like, you got to stop telling the truth. Yeah. You got to stop leaking all this, bro. You're going to wreck the case, or it's planned.
Yeah.
They're going to end up putting it on Steve G, maybe because Kaylee is not even dead. And the only person or people killed were Ethan and Xana because of the frat hazing incident. And yeah. Kaylee and Maddie were implicated for something else. And they were put into WITSEC. And that's why Steve can talk. That's why Steve can get around the gag orders. That's why Steve's lawyer is the only one present after Dateline and the leaks with the judge and the recent court documents that everybody's seen. Maybe 2 people died and 2 people were put into WITSEC.
Possible.
That should be a theory that we do, Phoenix. Maybe.
I mean, we've talked about 2 of them, which 2, right? We've talked about possibly all 4, but it would make better sense if it was the last 2 or 1, possibly 1, because a lot of people it's rumored that another roommate that was going to be on the lease was there that night, and that would be the 4, but 1 got away. So who knows, right? We hear that there's somebody else that was running around naked. It could have been Ethan. there's so many rumors that this trial needs to happen and place these rumors to rest. And if it's BK, then it's BK.
Why would they want the rumors though? I think sometimes, like, is that chess?
Absolutely. It's probable cause to just say, well, there's, what is it called? It's on the tip of my tongue. Doubt, reasonable, serious doubt.
Well, and so Kristen, you asked a really good question. You asked, do people in WITSEC stay there forever? I played a video on a stream about a week ago that talked about the process of WITSEC. There's times where, like, your wife, your kids, they don't know until you're fully safe, protected, extracted. And then you have to give a 10-day heads up to the marshals.
And
So,
you know what? In this case, I could never see them being fully safe.
No. There is too much money. There are too many powerful gangs.
Yep.
I would even argue universities, corporations, there's too powerful of people there. I would argue that's the reason for Ann Taylor's approach, Phoenix.
Yeah. I would too. There's just no way if they were in WITSEC, they would be in it for life, because
you'd have to be.
The individuals involved with other parental connections and, you know, uncles, aunts, brothers, siblings, the rug scene. I mean, if you look at all the individuals, all the players, you would be like, holy cow, they would never get out of this.
Yeah. And I just want to say too, it's a Friday night. We almost have 1,100 people in the Hive right now. You guys,
that's incredible.
You guys effing rock. Seriously.
Hey, we rocked it out. We were the fabulous duo over on TikTok, and look at us on YouTube.
I mean,
it's just wild.
Phoenix, we had to. Not that we didn't want to. We had no other choice.
Yeah, we were forced. Hey, it is what it is.
Because of, I don't even want to say the creators' names, because of a bunch of douchebags. A bunch of, wait, hang on.
So here's my question of the night. So I really wanted to find out who Kaylee dated that her dad, SG, said that this guy did not treat her that well. I really want to find out who that guy is, because there's a reason.
What if it was Hudson?
What if it was Hudson?
Oh my God, could you imagine?
She found out who unalived him.
What if Hudson got her pregnant? Is that too early? Is that too early?
That was, no, I don't think so. What if it was Hudson she was dating, and then her ex played a part in it, allegedly, and she found out? I wouldn't be able to date someone like that, would you? I would steer clear away, and I would move away and take every opportunity I could to get away.
I feel like in college, you were on the fringe of. So something that Mrs. Birdie and I talk about is that when you're an adult and dating, or when you're married, you get one gimme. One mulligan before it becomes your identity in an adult relationship. It could be a fight in public. It could be a controversial, my significant other was out with another person. They were texting them. There were DMs. You get one mulligan. And I feel like in college, you're on that edge, right? Mm-hmm. Where it starts to get very real. I don't know.
Well, what if she was dating the individual and broke it off with him because he didn't treat her well, and it was a jealousy and a rage? What if that was the individual that, did that? And maybe it wasn't Hudson.
Maybe it wasn't. But the theme for the motive isn't that kind of interesting, Phoenix, that theme can be applicable to pretty much everybody but Brian Koberger? I laugh out of like,
very true.
yeah,
I
it
mean,
really could.
I mean, some of the rumors that she was done wrong, brutal wrong, you know, that they took things from her that were hers physically on her body. And, you know, at first I didn't want to say it, but we knew that she was possibly strangled, and then it came out. And then, you know, more and more things started to get leaked, like she was punched in the face severely or damaged somehow beyond belief. And this was a personal message. I mean, when I first heard of it,
This
I
was a
thought
crime
of passion.
Yep.
At first, I thought it was a crime of passion. And then I started thinking a little bit more about the connections. This was a message to the family that they would not tolerate, perhaps, snitches.
So, Phoenix and Hive, I'm gonna task everybody in the Hive Mind, Phoenix, you as well. Tuesday night. So we have a couple of days. Tuesday night, obviously Monday, I have Devil's Advocate on with you, Phoenix. And Tuesday night, you want to know what we should do? We should look into every odd piece of info that Steve G's given. It could be they didn't have to go upstairs. It could be she was punched in the face. It could be the crawl space in the attic. It could be the truckers. Dude, why haven't we done that yet? That's what we should do. We should, if you guys can help me compile the clips and the interviews where those things are said, I will clip them. I'll put them into a compilation. Oh man, that would be interesting as hell, wouldn't it?
Make a video and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, I will. Okay. All right, I'm going to let this keep playing here. Shout out to Peggy. Thank you, Peggy. Hive Mind is the best chat in the game.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And one last thought here. Hudson died in a small creek.
Did he die there or was he dumped there?
I think he was dumped there, in my humble opinion.
He was allegedly waterboarded, which people then come back and say, you can't die from being waterboarded.
Yes, you can.
That's if the Navy SEALs are doing it right, where it's a torture method, everybody. If you're a frat boy, you might not know the proper technique, as effed up as that is, to waterboard somebody where you can keep them alive. Don't
you think there's enough information out there for these frat boys to do their research? They could get it right.
I don't disagree with that.
I'm just saying.
But I do think Hudson was an accident, a genuine accident. And oh shit, we just messed up accident. I really do believe that. And I do believe that it could have been the domino that fell that started the chain reaction.
But when you start having a lot of accidents like this in your college town as the police chief, you're going to get on the map.
Not just to the local law enforcement, to the feds, Phoenix.
Yes, absolutely. Because, you know, the sheriffs report to the FBI and the FBI reports to the attorney general.
And who does the AG always work with? The feds, right, Phoenix?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're going to pay the Pam Bondis of the world.
Yes. Oh, God. Okay. I got to let this play. Otherwise, I'm not going to end up finishing this. Rama Llama. Sorry. And I say that. Jesus. Let's go. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Genuinely from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
If you're going at this rate, I'm going to have to go back to Boise and get in that courtroom.
I'll go with you, Phoenix. I'm serious.
Hey, speaking of the GoFundMe's, holy shit, have you seen the family's GoFundMe's? I didn't even post Ben Mogan's.
No, to be honest, I never have really looked at the GoFundMe's outside of like any creator that's helping them.
So I did a video And I was floored because it was just a simple video. $86,000 to date for the Goncalves family. $86,000. So you know me, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try to find any public information on him as possible. He's over there freaking remodeling his second home bathroom.
Wait, what?
I'll post the receipts. You know I got him.
I know you got him, but where did you find that?
On Venmo. Remember I told you weeks ago, guys?
Oh, yes.
Put it on public.
Yes. Wow.
He's over there freaking remodeling a rental bathroom. Okay? A place that he rents out. Okay? Now, get this, $86,000 to date on that GoFundMe. Now, I've done my research, $2,000 to $3,000 a month for an Airbnb. Okay? Then you've got food. I get that. And I mean, what is he going to be doing? Taking a boatload or a busload of people down there? And then Maddie's mom has a GoFundMe. It's a pretty hefty size. I think it's at 40 or 50,000. Don't quote me on that one. And then you have Xana's mom. You know the history of these parents, right? That's like a down payment on a house, brand new car. I mean, or take your kids to Disneyland trip type of thing. $50,000, $60,000. What in the world is going on here?
Cash.
Money.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Let's get through this here. That's a great point, Phoenix.
And meanwhile, information continues to emerge about the quadruple homicide case on the University of Idaho campus, with a knife sheath found at that crime scene expected to be key evidence. Now, according to an affidavit, the knife sheath was sent to a lab in Texas since initial testing at a lab in Idaho could not connect Kohberger to the crime scene. The Texas lab had only been used for cold cases in the past. Lab workers used kinship DNA on the knife to actually match with Kohberger's father. But
I've never even seen this video, but that is exactly what I've said.
So we do want to welcome back former FBI special agent and News Nation law and justice contributor Jennifer Coffendorfer to speak about this. Jennifer, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Tasha.
So we know journalist Howard Bloom has been tracking this case closely. He spoke with News Nation's Brian Enton just a few days ago about that potential key evidence, the knife sheath. And we want to get your reaction to this. Let's listen together quickly.
But you're saying this lab that they sent the knife sheath to has never been used before except in cold cases?
Yes, this was the first time they were willing to take a chance. They wanted desperately to make an arrest. They wanted desperately to tie the suspect to this knife sheath.
Which, Phoenix, how much has that done damage showing this image to the case?
I mean, that's subliminal process, right? They want you to see how bad they're talking about the name and associated to a weapon.
Huh.
What is it? It's neuro. What is it again? They're getting you to think about it.
Yeah. I just wanted, this is off topic, but Festive 109 said, I'm done with this evil. Can we all give a second to thank our Lord? Honestly, amen to that. Great comment.
Yeah, especially putting it right in front of our faces everywhere.
Yes. So, amen, chat.
Tie the suspect to this knife sheath.
Gary Jenkins, chief of police at Washington State University, which is located about 7 miles from the University of Idaho. Chief, thank you very much for being here. Can you can you add anything to that about why they are expanding this perimeter and also about the involvement of your police department in this case?
Well, it was news to me about expanding that crime scene that I just watched on your show. As your reporter mentioned, it's likely there's potentially some evidence there that they're going to attempt to locate. And our department, we found out about this shortly after it occurred. I made personal contact with Moscow Police Chief James Fry and offered any assistance that we could provide. And at the time, he declined that invitation. But since then, his department's received significant response from law enforcement in the state of Idaho, as well as the FBI.
Well, there are so many questions here about what they mean by targeted and whether or not, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Ted. Is it your understanding that they have anything else that gives them the indication that this was targeted by someone that one of them or some of them knew, or whether or not this is a crazed person who came from the outside?
All the information we're getting from Moscow Police Department is that it is not a random attack, that it was a targeted attack. Typically, the types of things that would lead you to come to that conclusion are the types of details at a crime scene that they don't want to release right now to the public, so that they do not jeopardize the integrity of their investigation and a potential prosecution.
This is wild, though.
Yep.
Just a week after the murders, watch this next part. And as far as like when it says to know quite a bit about the case, doesn't do justice for what everybody's about to hear.
Well, it's going to be hard because obviously they're getting DNA from all of these individuals, and then they'll see if there is DNA that doesn't match the people that lived there. But one of the problems is that you had all of these people who apparently were coming and going. They called other people for help, apparently from the fraternity, to come over because they thought someone was unconscious. Just one last question, because maybe you've heard something about this. It seems that there's a big discrepancy between seeing someone in your home and saying they're unconscious and the kind of situation that's being described, which is that there was blood everywhere.
Yeah, again, I don't really want to speculate on the specifics of this investigation. I do know that there were people on different levels of that home. And there's a lot of explanations for why that might happen, but I don't really want to discuss any kind of the potential for this.
This says, Chief Jenkins, it was a pleasure to meet with you today and share my thoughts and excitement regarding the research assistantship for public safety. I look forward to hearing from you. Best regards, Brian. April 12th of 22.
And remember that video that I had where the chief of police was asked if Brian worked with them, and he couldn't comment without his attorneys present, the city attorneys.
Wow. Hold on.
Yep. Remember?
That shit is proof right there, Phoenix. That email, that singular, and no, I know you said that. That singular email, this could be the reason for that comment. Really, Absolutely. It really could be.
I mean, that's a common letter that you would write when you have just been offered and accepted a program, and you're excited, and it leaves it as to when that reporter asked if Brian Kober worked an internship, an unpaid internship in the police department. Chief Fry could not comment without his attorneys, the city attorneys present.
It could literally be because of this email. That is enough to trigger a comment like that. Genuinely.
Absolutely. They're all worried.
Because think of, again, outside the box, if you have an open mind to look through the lens How is Brian Koberger connected? Oh, he's connected through the law enforcement in the effing Moscow Police Department with this email. You know what I mean? That could be the connection. Well, what's his connection to the victims? Did he stalk them? Well, no. Right? Maybe he emailed the police.
I still believe he, in some way, he was an informant.
I'm telling you, he was sent. I think Brian Koberger was working with the feds out in DeSales. Genuinely.
But was he working with the feds to find out what MPD was doing?
Oh God, my head is just spinning because this is a Hive Mind find video, by the way.
Yeah, remember weeks ago when I said, could Koberger take down the entire C gang and the corruption?
I've said this before too. If you think that the
He's
craziest,
a smart dude.
I was going to say, if you think that the craziest shit the feds would do is to send a loner, quote unquote, incel criminology student across the country to expose corruption in a small town drug and human trafficking pipeline where there was a hazing death in Greek life, to expose all the corruption, you think that that's the craziest shit they would do is send in somebody that was a student under the BTK's professor? It's kind of like, okay, let's go back to kindergarten. They took down 2 towers in New York City on September 11th of 2001 to get us into a war. Arguably, our own government killed 3,000 of their own citizens and then lied about weapons of mass destruction, had Marines guarding poppy fields, and simultaneously, we have an opioid epidemic in our country. If maybe I'm wrong with all of that being related, well, then let's go back further to the Gulf of Tonkin to get us into Vietnam. All for election cycle, political government bullshit. Excuse my French. Our government will stop at no ends. This is some, excuse my language again, some pussy shit. Genuinely. If you're going to send a little effing criminology student to Moscow, Idaho to expose a little Greek life, oh, I just can't. It's just, how do you not see how easy that would be?
I said 21 Jump Street, and you said the movie? No, the actual show when I was in high school.
It just pisses me off. And we got open mind perspectives in.
Yep. Rolo, you're right. Vietnam was to take over the poppy. Yep. Sure enough.
Phoenix,
I know that firsthand from my dad.
Which we should do an interview separately, Phoenix, offline for that, if you'd be down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a pretty much open book. He passed on, but he wasn't proud of what he did over there as a Marine.
That was a great 10-minute segment. I'll clip that, Phoenix, if you're okay with it. But I think that would be a good intro or outro to just talking about that. And we have open mind perspectives also in the chat.
Woo,
so
welcome.
Yeah. If you guys don't follow her, I gotta genuinely say there's creators that there's stuff that I get tagged in. I get tagged in her stuff the most because it's truly, in my opinion, it looks through lenses of possibilities where earlier in the stream, I was talking about what's a sign of low IQ or high IQ. Can you mentally position yourself to think, well, what if that did happen? Well, if you can wrap your head around that X, Y, and Z happened prior, this makes perfect sense just because you weren't told about it. So thank you for joining. We've shown a couple of your videos, open mind perspectives, and Yeah, thank you for joining us. And email me, please. That'd be fun. So, anyways, there's 3 minutes left of this. I'm going to sit on my hands and not stop it here, Phoenix. Questions about expanding the crime scene. 2, is it possible that some of Ellie's searches we see formally on paper were performed without a search warrant sooner than later, especially since this occurred with the FIGG activity between November 20th through the 20th? Phoenix, what do you think about this little blurb? If law enforcement knowingly had Koberger's DNA in their possession on November 20th, would it be ethical of police to then intentionally have WSU police track down the same white Elantra as the one that was in their system from an August 21, 2022 traffic stop? Before you answer that, put yourself in a jury member's position. Just if you were Ann Taylor asking that question, would that create doubt in the average person's mind?
Yeah, I think it's unethical that they were looking for someone to fit their bill.
That's scary, everybody.
And remember, because the IgG tip is the only reason they knew his name. They had DNA. Let me explain something to you real quick. If you've never been put in a system, if they've never taken your DNA, you don't exist in CODIS. They don't even know who you are. But if they don't have your DNA, they need your name to go and therefore go get your DNA. What they did was they violated their own policy and procedures. They moved backwards. They had some DNA, then they went and got the name, and then they arrested him and did a swab and got his DNA. Yes, and it could happen to any one of us.
Rolo, I'd be curious. So he said suggesting a car door handle swab. I would be curious.
You can lift prints off of anything that you've touched. See, here's the point. How much DNA is left on a metal surface? That's my question. I don't know the answer, but if it's just a smudge on a knife sheet, is it enough to lift off and test?
Well, I want to know how reliable is effing DNA from garbage? Wouldn't there be a very easy counter to that?
I don't know that much about DNA and testing other than what I've studied myself.
Think of how easy touch DNA is to transfer. Phoenix, you could have handed me your phone a week ago.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean a week ago it was on there. It couldn't be on there today. You know what I'm saying?
I'm saying the same thing you are. So for the trash, I don't know. I mean, and to the person in the Hive that commented saying that mitochondrial DNA is always mother. Is that true? Not that I doubt that. Not that I doubt that person, but I'm just going to say.
Look it up. Let's look it up. We haven't done a live find in a while. I like that. A live find.
Yes. Is mitochondrial DNA only relative to the mother versus the father? Yes. Wow.
Interesting.
Wow, dude. Are you shitting me?
Interesting.
Holy cow. So hang on. You guys remember it went from touch. This statement is in a court document.
Yes. Not the father.
Yet it was a alleged 99 or 98.98899, whatever the hell percentage it was. A match to Brian.
Okay, so that's what it
test.
That's what it said in the document. So they had to have gotten it from the mother's DNA. She would probably have done an ancestry DNA test.
It had to have been. So, see, this is the little things. I've said this from day one. Just like we talked about Phoenix, if Brian Koberger did this, the case would not be ongoing. We would not see the most wild redactions,
Right.
gag orders, sealings ever. It would
So
not
why are
be
they stalling?
well, exactly. And then why lie about something that small? Why, you know what I mean? Because you want to know what it is? They didn't war game their fake narrative. They never expected the internet. They never expected the hive mind. And I say that to not sound like a cornball, but it's a bigger movement that's happening, everybody. Let me just tell you that. It's a bigger movement. The hive mind is a speck of dust in what is really happening as far as the movement goes. I've always said this. The revolution will not be televised.
Right.
You're going to have to find it in places like this.
And they didn't expect anybody to take a deep dive and look at these court records, look at what they're feeding us, and then break it down. They didn't expect a Birdie and a Phoenix to come along and say, what the hell is going on in this town?
An open mind says it's a brass snap, so the DNA cannot last on the brass snap longer than 6 hours.
That's what I thought on metal. So how did they got his trash DNA and they
That's why
linked
it's
it to the
mitochondrial.
mother? That's exactly what they did.
Dude, if I was a defense attorney, I would be salivating.
Why do you think Ann Taylor was up there explaining it to Judge Hippler?
And like I said, you go back.
Leather
you
doesn't
go back.
hold DNA. Yeah.
Yeah. Phoenix, you go back, you watch Ann Taylor. The clips hit different. Now.
They do. They do now that we have opened our minds to see what's really going on. Now we go look and watch those videos from weeks ago, and it makes sense to us because at the time we had limited knowledge of what she was talking about. Now that we get the bigger picture, we go back and watch a clip from weeks ago and we're like, damn, they're spot on.
Oh God. It's like, I'm not trying to tie everything back to 9/11, but like George Bush at ground zero saying, and don't let this be yada, yada, yada with outrageous conspiracy theories. Why are you saying that, bro? When you go back and look at it, you can almost flip it in the perspective of, wait, why is Ann Taylor saying that right now? When you go back and watch these, because she knows,
she believes in the constitutional rights.
Isn't it?
I wonder if she is more cited Republican Constitution, because I look at other players and I think how far removed, because I'm a former Idahoan. Idaho has basically been overrun with liberals, and I'm not saying it in a bad way. I'm just saying more people moved out of California and moved into places like Washington and Idaho and Nevada. And those are traditionally always been red states. And I'm wondering if this was a play from SG's words, let's put Idaho on the map.
Well, you know what's interesting when you say that with liberal or right wing, even me and you probably saying that makes people go, here we go. What are they going to say? Am I going to hate these people now? No, you're not. Because it's a tactic.
Yes.
It's a tactic. They dangle a carrot out in front of everybody. Every election. And when I say every election, I don't just mean every 4 years, Hive. Local election, congressional election, Senate election, everything. It's always.
Yep. They just had an election.
Obvious.
That week, they just had an election when these murders occurred.
Yes. Smick says it's all, I think you meant to say well, whatever. I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
But anyways, so long story short, let me finish this video here quick.
So when I testify in trial, when it comes to motor vehicles, what I say is, we show a stock photo or we show a photo of the vehicle that was used in the crime. And I go, hey, listen, this is what is unique about this vehicle for those years, because there's a range for this Elantra. It's 2011 to 2013. Exactly. Prior to 2011, it was a much more basic. You know, it wasn't as defined as or modernized to 2011. And then again in 2014, they changed the body lines on it and the front end, and also the tail lights. So
So with that, chat, let's finish this off here. Phoenix, please stay up here if you got some time.
Yeah, I do.
Let's chat, let's rattle off some questions rapid fire here. I'll put them on the screen and then I'll answer them. Let's see here. What do we got?
Wow, there's another case, Dana. Dana said that, and I've heard this about this case before. There's another case back in the early 2000s. A Sea gang killed a girl in Moscow, and then Meister was framed and sent to the slammer. He's still there, and he's innocent. I've heard about this case. They reference him in a lot of cases because in this case, he knew the perpetrator, and he tried to name the perpetrator. But under the IRE, the rules of evidence in Idaho, they reference this case a lot because there's certain guidelines they have to go by. But Dina's right. I've heard about this case before.
What about
no pictures?
This is one of those simple questions. And also, I'll combine it with this.
Well, I think the autopsies are sealed for a reason. I'd like to see toxicology myself.
And is this true here?
I've never heard about that one, but there's nothing on him. They didn't give him any honors or burial or anything of that nature.
You've said for a Purple Heart funeral, no matter how you die, you're a Purple Hearted veteran, special forces.
I've looked in military references, obituaries. He's not buried anywhere in high honors with a Purple Heart. So that's one of my concerns is why did no one honor him?
This is for you, Phoenix. Core just asked.
Phoenix, you said just about Idaho having laws. Is that reference to the CG was making when he said, thankfully, Idaho has rules, knowing that Brian couldn't name who actually did it? Now, there is a workaround, and I think Ann Taylor, in my humble opinion, I'm no expert, I'm no legal eagle, but I believe Ann Taylor has done this very smoothly, and the judge basically pushed back, and he said, I need to have some solid evidence. I think she has solid evidence of who the perpetrators are, and they will be having a hearing. It will be a closed hearing. We may not ever know who it is, but I would be on the lookout to see if anybody in the local areas are being arrested, just like a couple of people last weekend. But we'll see what happens with that.
This question, Carrie said, you mentioned in one live about Undercroft. Can you mention it again? So here is, it's Undercroft Co or undercrofto.com/Brian Koberger. Here is the website. This has everything in a huge document. It's clickable. Timeline of events, evidence, DNA on the sheath. These are, and then it's got all the timestamps. So a lot of people, when they dig into this case, one of the things is like when you go to the court docs, yes, they are all in one area, but it's hard to remember what court doc it is. This was a Hive Mind find about a week ago. It's got a lot of stuff. So like if I did let's say Control F, let's just say Elantra. You know, I could do Control F and Elantra. Here's 12 results. Boom, 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 boom. So this helps a lot if you're digging on this case. Undercrofto.com. Coffee Field 1425 asks, what do you both think the exculpatory evidence is? Great question. I'll let you start, Phoenix.
I would probably say it could possibly be someone who didn't see him at the crime.
I wonder if it's going to be the Amazon click data. What if he never bought the knife, is what I mean.
I could possibly see that, but it was said that that knife could have been used to cut some type of rug with somebody that was well known involved in this case. And remember, exculpatory basically refers to evidence that tends to clear the defendant's actions, suggesting innocent or lack of criminal intent. So it has to be somebody that can prove that he is not guilty 100%, like putting him somewhere else.
Look at what Rollo said, though. If they had his knife purchase proof, they wouldn't have taken his effing pizza cutter.
Yeah. They,
That's so true.
They even took pillowcases and cut off the red stains. Like, guys shave and they bleed sometimes, right? They cut off the red stains to test the red stains on his pillowcases, guys.
Open Mind says you have to remember in Pennsylvania when jogging around or walking, you got to worry about bears.
Yes.
So you have to carry something to bring.
Very true. In the Poconos, I've seen people even separate their garbage and put it in bags so bears don't get into their food, raccoons, other animals.
Can I just also, if you're comfortable answering in the chat, type a 1. Who here has a concealed carry? I'm serious. Carrying a weapon.
It's not against the law.
No, I don't even think it's unusual. It could be mace, it could be bear spray, it could be wasp spray, it could be a knife,
Okay.
it could be.
I just have to tell you a true story since you're asking this. So I go to I moved to Idaho and I have to go to a concealed carry class because per state of Idaho, you have to have one there. It's not transferable all around in all states. So I arrived there, my first 10 days there, I go to a class and this lady gets up to teach this class and I'm thinking, I bet she's got like 14 weapons on her. Guess how many weapons she had hidden?
On her person?
Yes, 22 weapons. She pulls out 5 knives from her ankles, a pistol on her back. She's
got a lipstick, a single round lipstick, probably.
Yeah, she's got bear spray. She's got every kind of pocket knife you can. And she's just unloading on the table, and everyone's like looking at her like, are you going to a gun club or fight, a knife club fight?
Well, here, Phoenix, I'll end this stream with a funny story. So before my father passed, my dad was a guns dealer, and he would work with SWAT and he would work with military bases. And there was a little gun shop that he just bonded and clicked with the owner of it in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. I think it was called Shorty's. It's a weird name. Anyways, I did the concealed carry class. Do you know what the guy teaching her class said is the most effective way? Because I don't know how your concealed carry was or what your parents taught you. My father and this concealed carry class instructor told me, told everybody in the class, pretty much if you show your weapon, you better have to use it. Like you don't use it to flex.
No, in this case, having the right to bear arms is not a flex in our culture.
No, it's
Definitely
an ick.
not.
It's an ick. It's an ick.
And if somebody breaks into your house, they're not there to ask for dessert or dinner. You know, if you're in that situation, you're going to have to protect your family. Many people are prepared to protect their family, and I kudos to them. Those who aren't prepared, we live in a day and age where I'm here to tell you, you need to prepare.
So what this gentleman teaching the concealed carry class told us is that there's 2 things that are the most effective thing as far as self-protection. First thing, if it's a home invasion, is a dog, which is barking, noise, right? The second thing is shit talk. He made us all cuss him out. It was incredible. But like, if you cuss somebody out in a threatening manner of like a warning, like, you know, I'm gonna KILLUMF. I have a gun. Like, if you say that, if it's not a serious threat, they're gonna stop. Do you know what I mean? It was just a really
Yep.
good like thought process to think through of like,
Absolutely.
you don't have to do it. And also for home protection, my father taught me one thing. He taught me if somebody breaks into your home, you should never be on the offense. You got to remember you're on the defense. You have a defensive position. And it sounds corny, it sounds weird, but like you and your significant other should not like, you know, if somebody breaks into your house, you need to know your like defense positions. Where are like the bottlenecks? Because you got to remember, you know your home better than an intruder does most times. And you need to know where are you safe no matter what, where if they come through that door, you're
know
safe.
your laws.
Yes.
Know your laws in your state. If you have the duty to no retreat, use it to protect your family. I covered a case out of Ohio, and you know, the family reached out to me and I covered the whole entire case. He was found not guilty by the jury, and it was self-defense. I mean, he actually shot someone and they passed away a couple of days later, but he had the right to defend himself and his family. And speaking of dogs, the first defense, right? The first protection. Where do you think Murphy was during this unfortunate tragedy in Idaho?
Well, I could think of a couple reasons why a dog wouldn't bark, Phoenix. Especially when people are getting stabbed to death, allegedly, right? There's one of two things that I can think of. Because that dog's going to bark if it can't see. That dog's going to bark if the door is closed. That dog's going to bark if it's kenneled. But you want to know when it won't bark? If it wasn't there.
Correct.
Or if it knew somebody there.
Correct. I think Murphy was not there and he was brought back in the early morning. And that's why they were calling to see if someone had Murphy.
Man, Phoenix, what a great live stream. What a great thought process. I'm glad that we did a little bit longer of one. We're almost going on 4 hours here. I'm going to probably break this up into 2 parts. So if you want to watch the replay, there'll be part 1 and part 2. Phoenix, great job tonight. I think as a reminder, let me just tell everybody in here. I decided not to do the flight club. Anybody who did sign up, I'm going to personally reimburse you. Email me, birdiebombshell00@gmail.com. The reason why is I think, Phoenix, you would agree with me. It's not a matter of doing members only streams. Not that it wouldn't be great. People who signed up, that's awesome. It would have been awesome. However, I think let's just double down on what works for the Hive. Let's do Q&As. Let's do a Sunday night roundtable. Let's figure out a way how we figure out what topics we're going to talk about, who comes up. Every stream will remain completely free. Myself, Phoenix, any of my guests that I have on my stream, that as far as I know, nobody, not one of us is ever going to ask for money. So that was a decision that Mrs. Birdie and I noticed just because of the confusion right off the jump. We had people sign up. It's great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But
I had people messaging me all day long. Oh my God, they're gonna charge, and I was like, well, that's first to me. I mean, we'll figure it out. I'll ask. And then some people were like, some people were having withdrawals.
Yeah, it was suggested in the chat, and that's what I even said when I put it out there. I'm like, we'll see how it goes. But no, I don't really want to. It was one of those things where it's kind of like a moment of you have people say, yeah, that's a good idea. And it just doesn't sit right with you. So all of the streams, everything's staying the same, chat. I'm just going to double down on what works with the Hive. It's
Birdie,
the best chat in the game. So
your chat is on fire. Your channel's on fire in just a short amount of time. And I just wanted to plug myself. Make sure you follow my channel because I'm going to be moving over more to YouTube myself. You know, TikTok's great. And most of you have transferred over and followed us here. I think it's a more open platform. It's better. I mean, we can't tag people like we like, but I think this format works really well.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things that bothers me is TikTok. Two things. One, if you're watching a live on TikTok, you can't use the app on your phone. You can't really stream it to a TV. As a reminder, if you stream YouTube to your TV, you could still comment from your phone. There's a setting you can do it. What really ultimately bothers me is when we have unbelievable conversations with guests and either we get reported, I get reported for my book, or I get reported for saying murder instead of unalived, and I can't have access to any of that stream. It won't even let me view it. I can't download it. It happened 3 times, and the third time was like, third strike, I'm done. So anyways, long story short, live streams will be on YouTube 7 p.m. Central weeknights, Sunday nights 7 p.m. Saturday's a crapshoot. Thank you, Peggy. Man, this chat's effing awesome. Just know this. Phoenix and I met randomly. The Hive Mind has been something that's probably been overdue. Phoenix and I do not want to take credit for other creators' content. We try to give them credit whenever they do a great job. Outcast, we've shown Open Mind Perspectives, we've shown
Nash
Devil's
Graphics,
Advocate, Nash Graphics, we've showed Pavarotti. Trust me, if we're showing your stuff, it's because you're a gangster and you dove deep.
Only available at not available.
Yeah, Criminal Mind holds like
Criminal
it.
Mind
So
holds.
just what's the dude that the other dude on TikTok? Why am I blanking on his name? Not Optimus Prime.
Oh, Warpool.
Warpool. Yeah, Dead Warpool.
Yeah,
Dude,
Dead Warpool.
He's the man.
He's awesome.
So, anyways, if you don't subscribe, this is a new channel. As of 1 month and 5 days ago, I had a combined business account that I was putting this to. I got a brand new one. Kelly, thank you so much. Anyways, please subscribe. Half of the viewers, Phoenix, that we have don't subscribe. It is free to subscribe. I'm not begging for subscriptions, but I don't think that people sometimes understand. Subscribing is free. You just press a button. It's like liking, and then you'll get notifications and stuff.
Yeah. And giving a thumbs up is free. It doesn't cost anything. Yeah. We're not looking for any donations. We're just here to figure out what in the world is going on in this story.
Yeah. And I'm excited for the future with this case, new cases, contrarian thoughts. I know people are bouncing because I'm saying we're done with the stream. The Flight Club was a really good test personally for me, because it was like one of those reinforcing moments of like, in the moment, everyone's like, yeah, that's a great idea. You should do it. And we had people sign up. I don't want to cause confusion. I don't want to charge people and feel like they're not able to watch this. This is the Hive Mind. It's started out as the Hive Mind. It will stay the Hive Mind. You guys have my word. And I am so excited for what everybody in this chat will dig into and make all the powers that be unable to sleep, because they know they got Phoenix, they got Devil's Advocate, they got Sammy T Mafia, they got Nash Graphics, they got Open Mind Perspectives, they got Pavarotti, they got War Deadpool, they got everybody that Criminal Minds, not available, only at not available. There's some badass MFs that dig into stuff. So with that being said, Phoenix, thank you. Great stream tonight. This will be up in 2 parts tomorrow. And I don't know what time I'm going on tomorrow, but Sunday night, 7 p.m., Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 7 p.m. Saturdays, like I said, are a crapshoot. Phoenix, I hope you have a great weekend. Everybody in the chat, thank you for tuning in. And with that being said, cheers, everybody.
Have a good night, Birdie. Enjoy
Yep.
your time off.
I will. You too, Phoenix. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.